Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Purple Insider presented by FanDuel. Matthew Collar here, and I will tell you off the bat that there are no quarterback charts with reps on them tonight, or throws, positive, negative, and so forth, because the Minnesota Vikings had a walkthrough practice. So that means no full speed reps, no 7-on-7s. It was individual stuff, learning type stuff, and then they go through 11-on-11 slow motion. So the quarterback takes the snap, sort of wanders to where he would throw it, and then tosses it to the person that he's supposed to throw it to, but not in any way, shape, or form in a way that we could evaluate what was going on today. So I will say that Kyler Murray and JJ McCarthy were on the same field and they were switching back and forth with the first team, but that's not real practice reps. And I thought that today, if it was a full speed practice, we would be able to get a sense for, is the coaching staff going to even out the rep count, which has now clearly gone toward Kyler Murray after the first 2 days in terms of who's playing with the first team. And even going back after the show and counting up again, it was at least double the amount of reps that Kyler Murray had yesterday with the first team than JJ McCarthy, who only had 6 total, and 2 of them were a screen and a handoff at the end of practice. But is that going to switch around? We'll talk about that a little bit more later. But where we left off yesterday, unfortunately, I don't have a conclusion for you because it was a walkthrough. But that does not mean I have nothing for you, because here we are on the show. So Justin Jefferson spoke after practice. I've got 3 things that he said, and one of them really popped out to me because of a discussion I was having with Andrew Kramer, who's going to come on the show tomorrow. We were having a conversation on the sideline about something that then Justin Jefferson brought up, and I was like, okay, I think that I want to talk about this a little bit more, right? So we'll get into that. Also, I have 5 things that I'm going to be really looking for as training camp ramps up, because these first couple days, this is welcome back. This is everybody get on their football pants or shorts and a helmet and start to relearn the offense, make a few throws. I know we treat each day like it's a game with the breakdown, and you guys have really enjoyed the breakdown, so I'm going to keep doing them, the charting and everything else, and I've been excited about that and how much you guys have enjoyed me trying to do it in the most objective and descriptive way that I possibly can for this quarterback competition. But it's only been 2 days and none of them have been in pads. And as the fans return tomorrow, that's where usually the intensity starts to go up. The players feel it, the fans are back, and normally this is how they always do it, with a walkthrough practice. And then the practice in front of the fans is often kind of fireworks. I remember last year, it was JJ McCarthy's best practice early in training camp. And it often has been for a lot of the quarterbacks, because Kevin O'Connell is aware that the fans are there and they want to run a lot of stuff that the fans are going to enjoy and get a lot out of that trip to TCO Performance Center. So it's kind of welcoming back the fans with some sort of, pretty intense practice. So I'm looking forward to that. And then the pads return on Monday. So they won't have a practice on Sunday, no show on Sunday. But then unless, I don't know, something comes up, you never know. If they acquire an outside linebacker, Teasley. But if that doesn't happen, then no show on Sunday. And Monday will be the first day of pads. Always one of my favorites. Usually the defense dominates that day, but we'll get a really good look at aggressive physical play from Caleb Banks from the defensive line. So I have 5 things that I'm really, really looking forward to as the temperature of camp turns up in the coming days. But let us begin tonight. And I want you guys so this is a wide open show. Questions, comments, but the main thing I have for you guys is, what are you looking forward to as camp ramps up? So you've gotten a sense, you've gotten a lay of the land. We've talked about where the quarterbacks stand right now. We've talked about a lot of where guys are playing and what it kind of looks like roles might be. What do you want to see as it ramps up? Any other questions, comments, throw them into the mix, and we will get to that pretty soon. But I want to begin with Justin Jefferson, and he was asked about whether he would like to be a part of the decision about who becomes the Vikings starting quarterback and whether he expects to be looped in to that choice.
To or want to have any input to Kevin as this competition goes along?
I feel like he's going to ask me along the way, but I feel like, you know, I don't know. It's difficult question. You know, it's just all about who comes out here and makes the plays, who's going to be that vocal leader, that person that we can depend on throughout the, difficult parts of the season, and who's consistent. So whoever that guy is, that's who we're rocking with. And obviously we're going to have the other guy, throughout the whole entire season, if anything else goes bad. So it's just all on, getting the work in, creating a connection with both players, and just building on that.
Yeah, I think Justin Jefferson has tried very hard at any point this offseason, whether it was, NFL Network interviews or whoever else, there was some convention that he was at that he was asked questions. He's always kind of gone with these pretty standard lines that he knows is not going to really tip his hand, right? If Jefferson comes out and says, yeah, well, having somebody new in there is pretty awesome, everyone's going to read into it. If he says, absolutely, I'm going to have a big say in who becomes a quarterback, then he sounds like, oh, I'm a diva and I should be the one making the call and everything. Like, he has really figured out a very nice political line, which is, you could tell how uncomfortable he is with that because Jefferson is a very earnest person at the podium. He was our Corey Stringer Good Guy Award last year, Media Good Guy Award, because he often is raw emotions, and what you see is what you get from him. And even if he's trying to sort of bite his tongue, he is still insightful into what's going on. And with this quarterback competition, it's really just been, I love how they're both playing and everything. Like, he does not want to sway things in one way or the other. And you also could hear it in this comment as well, where he talked about just wanting to see this competition and enjoying competition.
Kyler and JJ, are you enjoying watching them go head to head?
I love a competition. I always love a competition. I feel like a competition brings out the true dog in you and that true player within you. So it's just all about who's coming every single day with that fresh mentality, and that every single day is a new day, and really not dwelling on the past day, and even if it's a great day or not, just moving on and just stacking those days and being consistent.
And I think you can really hear it there. Like, yep, it's just about being good all the time. And that's, what I like to see. I mean, I think that Jefferson, I get the sense that he does like the idea of getting the best quarterback out there and having them play for the job and everything, and not having something handed to whoever. But I also think that he is just desperately trying to tiptoe around making any headlines. I don't think that that's what he wants to do. And I don't think he wants to come off as being selfish in any way or a bad teammate to either one of those quarterbacks. And he did say that whichever quarterback wins the job, I mean, at some point they might have to play. So you don't want to be Justin Jefferson campaigning for one guy or the other and then, oh yeah, hey, it's you, right? That could definitely happen. But of the comments he made, this next one was the one that Andrew Kramer and I were having a conversation about that I want to discuss a little bit with you guys, just because it popped a little bit for me. So have a listen.
Say it's just Kyler's comfort in the system now compared to this spring.
Yeah, he's definitely getting more comfortable with it. I mean, this offense is very complex and very difficult. A lot of verb. You know what I'm trying to say. And just a lot of moving parts and moving pieces to it. So just like I said, the communication part of it, talking with him and making sure that he understands, where I need to be at, where he would like me to be at, all of those different things. So being on that same page is a key factor.
Some people say verbiage. Some people say verbiage. Not exactly sure which one is correct, but it wasn't what he tried for there. But what he did say was that the offense is very complicated. And we have heard Justin Jefferson say this before. And I've asked people, what does this mean? I've asked players, what does it mean when you say that it's complicated? And what he said was, when it comes to, what he said there is the verbiage or verbiage, whichever you like. There's a lot of words. There's a lot of long play calls, and there is I think a challenging amount of formations, personnel packages. I asked the wide receiver not too long ago about this, and that's what they told me, is that it's not more complicated as in the routes. Like, there are only so many routes in the tree. There's a dagger route, there's a corner, there's a post, but there are complex things within the reads, pre-snap, post-snap, where everyone's supposed to be lined up, how their splits are supposed to be, how the alignment is supposed to be. And every single one of these things has its own words and tags that a quarterback has to know. And Adam Thielen was recently on ESPN, and he was talking with Dan Orlovsky, and he explained with some 2024 tape of Sam Darnold executing the offense. He was showing in this tape where he would stop it and say, you see what Justin Jefferson is doing right now? He's reading the safety, and based on where the safety goes is where Jefferson goes. So he has to be on the same page with Sam Darnold, or that ball is just going to be thrown to absolutely nowhere. They have to both see the exact same thing. They have to make the right read together as a quarterback and wide receiver. So it's complicated like that. And I think that he said that at the line of scrimmage, there's maybe 5 different things that some teams will do. And for KOC's offense, it's 50. I believe that was the comment where he was talking about getting to the line of scrimmage with the different play calls and different adjustments and changes and everything else. And the discussion that I was having with Kramer was basically whether this offense is too complicated to the point where it's going to be hard for Kyler to get down, or it's going to be really difficult for a young quarterback last year, and if it was too much to ask of JJ McCarthy to run this offense with all the different things that it has to do, and with Jefferson making the comment about how complicated it is, and then Thielen talking about how complicated it is, and we had heard that from Kirk Cousins, and we had heard that early in camp from Sam Darnold, and we have not had a chance to ask O'Connell about that yet, about how it's coming along with the complexity of the offense and so forth. We also know that last year in the second half of the season, when McCarthy came back from missing 5 games, that it was noticeably different with the approach. It was much more run first. There were fewer things that they were being asked to do, but they still had the game where they jumped off sides 8 times and they could not get on the same page with the cadence, which maybe a quarterback issue, possibly also could be a complex issue with the offensive line and the quarterback all getting on the same page with the right cadence for each play. And then after that, when some of the things were going wrong, that was when we really saw the offense not have many motions, not have many different formations. It was pretty well simplified. And you could say that that's when McCarthy played better, but the sample size is difficult because Washington and Dallas and the New York Giants all had 3 of the worst defenses in the NFL. So was it that, or was it just that you could have beat them no matter what, because they were terrible, terrible defenses who I think all fired their defensive coordinators at the end of the year? I tend to think that the truth is probably somewhere in the middle with this, where Kevin O'Connell expecting JJ McCarthy to know the offense after spending all of 2024 with the Vikings, studying the offense, watching Sam Darnold run it, and be effective as he was, that he should step in 2025 and be able to know the offense. But there is a little bit of a difference, and maybe I could think of this in a way of like playing an instrument, which I know you guys know that I do. And I think I can watch a YouTube video of how to play something, and I comprehend it, I understand it. Here's the key that you're in. Here's the scale that you're running. Here is the whatever, this time signature or something. Okay, I got it. But that doesn't mean I can do it while only picking up the instrument a couple times and then master it, right? And I wonder about the difference between being in a meeting and understanding something, as JJ McCarthy, he is known for being very good on the whiteboard and really having a great mind for football. It's one of the reasons he was drafted this high. And, when people have questioned like his intelligence and things like that, I think that maybe, some of the maturity, and I'm not saying he's immature as a person, I'm saying that like football maturity had not come along yet. But in terms of knowing X's and O's, like I think that he gets it. But you only have a handful of practices last summer that are really hard, serious, long practices to master something that's very complicated when you had only thrown 700 passes in college and had absolutely no reps at this. And people have asked before, well, how does practicing help you get better? Well, this is how. It's mastering a very complicated offense. And did they ask too much of JJ McCarthy, and how much do we need to factor that in now? Because McCarthy came back and he said when he returned, that he has more clarity of mind, that he really understands it, that he feels like it's been locked in with the verbiage, that like he gets to the line of scrimmage and he knows all of the moving parts. Now, of course, that doesn't change the matter of fact of where we are, that Kyler Murray through 2 days has received many more first team reps and is the by far and away favorite to win the quarterback competition because of his past performance, because he's a veteran quarterback. And, that's another thing that was on my mind as well is, well, how hard is this going to be for Kyler if the offense does require so many details, so many words, so much study and everything else? And I'm of two minds of this, because I do think that from McCarthy's perspective that, he's got a case that if there was too much put on his plate right away, to look at Kevin O'Connell and say, man, that was maybe more than it should have been. And I think about the way that the Seattle Seahawks and Clint Kubiak, not that I think it's the simplest offense in the world, but I do think it's pretty straightforward. They move players around and they have pre-snap stuff, and it's Shanahan inspired and all that. But I think you saw such a strong knowledge of that offense from Sam Darnold last year. There wasn't a lot of hesitation in his game for, running Clint Kubiak's offense, and they ran outside zone. They ran bootlegs. They really did have a lot of simple and straightforward ideas in that offense. And the team seemed to always be on the same page with it. The offensive line in Seattle always seemed to be on the same page with it. And we are now going on year, I don't know what, of offensive lines kind of looking around sometimes and not knowing what everybody else's job was. And it's been, well, maybe Ed Ingram's not very good, and I still don't think he really is. And, but Dalton Reisner could get it, who had been here for who had been in the NFL for quite a long time. And, last year when some of the guys who hadn't been in the offense were thrown in, there were mistakes when there were injuries and so forth. Now they've changed offensive line coaches, but is it going to be more straightforward, or are there still going to be, a lot of different layers to this thing? Because Kyler Murray has to have all the tools in his belt to be able to have a top-notch offense. And this is the other side of the argument, is that Kirk Cousins did take a little while to get it, but once he got it, he played really, really well. And Sam Darnold, I thought it was a little bit simplified for Sam Darnold when he started the 2024 season. But by the middle of the season, when he locked it in, really after that Jaguars game where it seemed like he and O'Connell got on the same page with the offense. But we have heard Jefferson at times throughout the years kind of quietly suggest, like, yeah, I think we should just kind of line up and beat our guys. Like maybe there's a little bit of too many motions or, whatever it might be. So how is that balance going to work out with Kyler Murray when he's not getting every single first team rep still, even if they are split more toward him and less toward JJ McCarthy, but he's not getting, every single one. And is he going to be able to get to a place where they feel great about what he knows? Also on the other side of that argument, though, with Darnold playing well and Kirk playing well, is Carson Wentz was able to come in and play really well in his first game, good enough in his next couple of games. Wasn't good in Pittsburgh, but fine against the Cleveland Browns, who are a elite defense, and was able to get a game-winning drive there. Certainly gave him a shot against the Philadelphia Eagles. Probably they leaned into him too much in that game, and they needed to finish a drive or two in the red zone, and he was not accurate, but it wasn't like he didn't know where to go with the football. So the fact that guys who have been veteran quarterbacks have been able to pick this up does make you think that maybe it would apply to JJ McCarthy last year and work a little bit in his favor for this year of understanding the offense better, but maybe not be a huge detriment to Kyler Murray, who's been around for as long as he is. It does seem like memorization, though, is the toughest part. And I remember Kirk talking about this and Sam Darnold recording on their notes apps the play calls, and then on their drive into the stadium or to the practice facility, they were reading them back to themselves, listening back, saying them back. Every quarterback's got to do stuff like that. But when you're adding so much more to the plate, is that the way you want to do it? But then this is what I'm saying is a real discussion. I have back and forth, and this is kind of what it sounded like with me and Kramer talking, was that like if you can get it, it works, right? And did Kyler actually need something like this to get all of Kyler Murray out of him, right? Like, because we always think, well, it's better. No coach has ever been criticized for saying they're going to simplify an offense. It's never happened. Every time a coach says we're simplifying the offense, everyone goes, yes, simplify the offense. But if you come to a knife fight with a gun, when it comes to your ability at the line of scrimmage, I mean, you're going to win, right? And this is the same coach who had Justin Jefferson winning Offensive Player of the Year, which is actually the FanDuel question of the day that I might as well give you now. The leader for FanDuel, on FanDuel for Offensive Player of the Year is Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson. Justin Jefferson is plus 1,800. Gibbs is plus 650 and Robinson is plus 900. Do you think that a running back or wide receiver will win Offensive Player of the Year this year? Like, who would be your pick? Because 2 running backs are at the top, but there's a lot of receivers right behind. So that's the FanDuel question of the day. But we've seen what this does for Justin Jefferson when it works. So I'm of 2 minds, and I'm curious about what you guys think. I guess I would land in the spot of, if other players are still sort of saying this, including Jefferson, it's very complicated, there's a lot to it, then I don't think it's a stretch to say that early on last year, they may have asked too much, but only really for the first 2 games. And then when he gets back from the hiatus, then you saw them go more toward a run first type of approach, really in every game except for the Ravens game where they were playing from behind quite a few points. And that was about it. So I'm not sure that I think that it caused what happened last year, but I do think that it was a lot to ask for JJ McCarthy, probably from the start. At the same time, he did have a year to learn it, and other veteran quarterbacks have figured it out. So I'm not sure where exactly to stand on it. I don't think it could be used as some sort of excuse, but I do think that it is something that Kevin O'Connell needs to have in the back of his mind as he's working with Kyler Murray. Like, what type of mental load can you ask to where they can play fast? In and out of the huddle is valuable. Like, getting out of the huddle in whatever it is to have 15 seconds left at the line of scrimmage where you can identify the defense is so much different than walking to the line of scrimmage with 5 seconds left and having to be like, and scramble, which we saw a lot early last year. So I don't know. It's a good discussion. I want to run down the 5 things I'll be looking for as camp ramps up, and then we'll get to your questions, comments, and thoughts. So here is my list. 5 things to watch as camp wraps up. Shocking number 1 pick is the rep counts for the quarterbacks, of course. But the fact that Kyler took so much more, is it going to be evened out once the pads come on, or once tomorrow's practice that I expect to be a very hardy workout? I'm guessing that one is going to go for quite a while and will be a very intense practice to get the fans back, get some excitement, some cheers up in the stands. They'll take some shots. I know Mike Zimmer used to do this for the night practice where he would always dial up some shots because he wanted the fans to see some deep plays and stuff. We make Zim out to be a pretty big ogre, but he really did love the fans. That is absolutely true. But how many reps are they really going to get? Because if this stays in Kyler getting 2 times or 3 times more of the first team reps, and McCarthy is almost exclusively working with the second team, then we know exactly how far away this quarterback competition really is, right? And we'll start to get a sense of what would actually have to happen for McCarthy to have a chance. And you could say, well, it's not real, or it's a fraudulent competition, or whatever else. I mean, they could still be competing when they're playing with the 1s and 2s. It just tells us what the starting marker really is. But if, the coaching staff goes back and says, you know what, we gave Kyler a lot more on that day, so we're going to even it out, and JJ's going to get a lot more on this day, then it is both guys starting from the 0 when the pads come on. Because as much as I'm the problem, I made the charts and we broke it down and I went throw by throw, which I will continue to do. There was no pads on, and it's just not a real practice until the pads come on. So that's when, and they feel that way too. The players feel that way. The coaches feel that way. This is a ramp up. That's when the real practices start. So if it's still going hard toward Kyler Murray with the first group, then yeah, I mean, we're going to have a really good sense that Murray is much more likely to be the starting quarterback than McCarthy. But if not, then hey, reset it to 0, right? I've been strongly on Kyler Murray is going to win in terms of the prediction and is going to be named the starting quarterback at some point, and that a lot would have to happen for McCarthy to get there. But if they take even first team reps, then that meter kind of goes to 50-50 until that changes, right? So that is clearly the number one thing that I'll be watching. And then how they perform seems rather obvious. Number 2 is how much work is Caleb Banks getting, and will he look the part quickly? During the workout today, or the walkthrough today, shouldn't really call it a workout. Maybe there was a sweaty guy coming off the field, but it was really a walkthrough. He was mixing in 1s and 2s, and I think we're going to see a lot of Caleb Banks. But how much and how does it look as we go through, as I'm putting it ramps up. So not just tomorrow, but like over the next week. This is the first true week of training camp. The fans get back, the pads come on, let's go, right? So where does Caleb Banks fit in? And I think there's a good chance that he's going to have a lot of reps over the next couple of days. And we're going to get at least a baseline of where is he starting? And then we can compare that to where he gets to. And will he play in the preseason? I mean, I think that he probably should, because this is a guy who's played so little football since 2024 that he really needs to play in the preseason. And, being delicate with guys is a good idea. Veteran players shouldn't play in the preseason. That's why I think that the quarterback competition will end before the preseason game, because we know O'Connell just does not believe in putting out all of his starters out there. But with someone like Banks, even if you are planning to play him a lot in the regular season, I think that he needs to get a ramp up in the preseason. So, but over the next week, that's what this really is. The 5 things to watch over the next week as the pads come on and this gets exciting is just, where is he at to start? How many reps? And does he get into the backfield? Does he look good against the run? We'll be watching closely. Number 3 is that the depth wide receivers, you have my attention. Dylan Bell made a great catch the other day. Miles Price has been very involved in the offense. Ty Felton had one that I didn't love and then one really, really nice catch the other day, and he's making a case for himself as well. So the depth wide receivers, they've got a real competition there between, Felton, Miles Price, and Dylan Bell, and then whoever else, might emerge there as well. Oh, Dante Fleming. I keep saying, don't doubt Dante. I like Dante Fleming is a part of this mix as well, as somebody who both years now, last year and so far in this set of practices, has made his presence known as a deep threat wide receiver. So there are 4 guys really to watch very closely for who steps up in that unit. Number 4 on my list is the safety rotation and depth secondary players. So if Isaiah Rodgers, maybe this will come up with KOC, is doing kind of a hold in, if there's a contract negotiation ongoing, well, that just opens the door for other guys to get work. Zamiah Vaughn is a player to watch. A big, lanky dude who caught their attention last year. Also, Charles Demings. I saw him in the slot the other day, but I do think he could play outside as well. That's a rookie with a lot of juice. And the safety rotation at this moment, it looks like Theo Jackson and Josh Metellus as the traditional 2 safeties, with Metellus being the strong safety, and with Jay Ward playing big nickel. I like it. I'm intrigued by it. I mean, I think that Ward really showed something to us last year, but that's going to have question marks. And can Jacoby Thomas get into the mix? I'm going to throw something out here too. And thank you so much, PY, for the super chat. Thank you. Really, really appreciate that. I'm going to throw something out here. It's maybe a hot take. I don't know. I'm going to be watching Jacob Thomas, not Jacoby Thomas, Jacob Thomas, the Thomas brothers, as Flores called them. I've only watched him in warmups and not really close during the plays, because I've been usually watching the quarterback. But there is some explosiveness to that guy that caught my attention. And that doesn't mean make the roster necessarily, but it caught my attention that Jacob Thomas has some jolt to him as a safety. So I'll be watching him. the rotations and the defensive secondary, very important here. And then number 5 really is KOC's comments. I mean, is he hinting in one way or the other? What does he say about how each quarterback has looked? How is he feeling about the competition? And are we sensing frustration that they haven't gotten it yet? Or are we sensing that he feels really good, that, you know, they're coming along and he likes the way that Kyler's playing? Or what might it be? Might there be, you know, I don't even know, like something to be said about, you know, where JJ McCarthy stands? I mean, it's just always interesting to listen to him talk about quarterbacks and what kind of details we can get of what to look for with these quarterbacks as we go forward. I believe KOC is going to talk tomorrow, so we'll listen to what he has to say there. And then, you know, I'm sure we'll get more of him as camp goes on. But as that ramps up, as the pads come on, we'll hear from him a few times. So those are 5 things I'll be looking for, but I do want to add the bonus, the punting battle. That's mostly for preseason, but you know, I'll be keeping an eye on it as we get those guys doing some punts. And exciting rookies. I mentioned Charles Demings, but Damon Claiborne, that's somebody that there's a lot of attention on. So, gosh, another day today where he took a handoff and just his first 3 steps were like, man, this guy is fast. So, you know, is he getting a lot of the work? Is it going more to Xavier Scott? All these things as the pads come on and those guys have to pass protect, then we'll start to really see it because the linebackers can come a blitzing. Right now, I mean, they're not really doing that. They are blitzing, but they're not like really coming at the quarterback because they don't have pads on. But once that happens, the blitzes are real, my friends. So, what is on your mind? What are the things to watch for you, as tomorrow's practice will very likely be intense, and then the coming days, the pads come on? What is on your mind? Any other questions? I will answer those as well. But first, got to tell you about a couple of wonderful sponsors of this here show. The first one is my friends at Brooklyn Bedding. I just can't tell you how great it was to throw my carcass onto my new bed from Brooklyn Bedding. It is the Aurora Luxe model. And you know what? It sounds cool, and it is cool. It was a game-changing experience. To tell you the truth, I've always gone pretty cheap with mattresses in the past. I thought, what's the difference? Until I got the Aurora Luxe. And now I feel like what was missing this entire time. But it is cost effective, not that expensive, and built to last with long-term durability in mind, and made right here in the old United States of America. So that the craftsmanship matters a lot, and I feel like you can really tell. I'm getting great sleep. You guys notice how much energy I have? I'm also writing the newsletter, doing the pod. We went 3 hours last night. You know why? That's great sleep. And what I really like about Brooklyn Bedding too is that you get the 120 night comfort trial. So, you know, if it didn't work out for us, then we could have said, all right, let's swap this for another mattress or return it hassle-free. So go to brooklynbedding.com and use my promo code PURPLE to get 30% off site-wide during their back-to-school sale. That is brooklynbedding.com. Promo code PURPLE, 30% site-wide. So go check that out. Also wanted to tell you, I mean, if we want to tie these 2 reads together, we could do it this way. You know, Brooklyn Bedding has gone the extra mile for us, where they found the perfect bed. And, you know, when somebody goes the extra mile, it makes you really feel like you're wanted. So at ZipRecruiter, there is a great way to find people that really want your job. So if you're hiring, you want great candidates that will go that extra step. You could try it right now at ZipRecruiter.com/audio. And ZipRecruiter has a new feature that shows you who are the most interested and qualified candidates first, so you meet the right people faster, those people who will go the extra mile. They have powerful matching technology that gets you qualified candidates faster, and they can tell you in their own words why they want the job. There is no wonder that ZipRecruiter is rated the #1 hiring site. So try ZipRecruiter right now and meet great candidates who go that extra step. 4 out of every 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try it for free. ZipRecruiter.com/audio. That is ZipRecruiter.com/audio. Now to your questions. Let us begin with Aaron. Did JJ get more reps is all I want to know. Today, I mean, since they were doing walkthrough, it was very even. But that is a big thing to watch as we go into the next couple of days, because it's possible that they even things out, and it's possible that it just slants very hard toward Kyler Murray. and that we're really going forward talking about him as the quarterback really just by the end of the week. I mean, if there is a hard lean toward Murray and he's taken 68% of the first team snaps, then we'll have a really strong idea that he's going to be the quarterback, because it would take a lot to swing that back the other way if he's taken 7 out of every 10 or whatever it might be. But if it evens itself out over the next week, then we're going to feel like, hey, going into that night practice, that could be huge. Going into those last 3 or 4 practices before the preseason game, that would be huge. I just don't think, and it's just my opinion, this is not something anyone has told me, but based on O'Connell's past, it really feels like he wants the camp portion to be finished by the time they get to the preseason and then turn that to the preparation portion, just based on kind of what we've heard from him in the past. So I'm thinking within the next 2 weeks, but it really, by the end of this week, could be pretty telling where things truly stand. Joker said if the Vikings run scheme is anything like the Dolphins last year, it's going to be really good. CD's confidence was pretty exciting. Yeah, I asked him about the run game. I think it was me who asked the question, right? And Christian Darrisaw was like, we got something cooking. I can't tell you what it is, but we got something cooking. The biggest thing for me about Miami, and I did watch about 5 different games. I didn't watch every single run snap, but I watched parts of about 5 games, trying to get a feeling on how they use the fullback. And what I saw was just misdirection. It seemed like they always had somebody going the wrong way, in a good way, and drawing linebackers away, drawing safeties away. And a lot of these defenses have adjusted to try to deal with that stuff by playing in zone defenses, so you're not just scrambling. But you still saw all the time linebackers hesitating, linebackers leaning, and then big gains from Devon Achane behind Alec Ingold, behind a offensive line that wasn't that great. They have a couple good players, but their center's great. But it was really a lot of schematic stuff. I mean, there were a few times where Tua was faking a pitch and then handing it off, stuff like that, and you'd see half the defense go one way. I have not felt that very much during the last couple of years for the Vikings. I have not felt like, oh, wow, they were really fooled by that. And when you run outside zone, I think we all know what that looks like, as the offensive line sort of all moves together in unison. But there's a lot of little details you could put into that. The formation, which side you run it to, maybe you run a play action early in the game and then you go back in the next time you run. Like, there's a lot of different little nuances that you can bake into that run game that I'm excited to see it too. I don't know when we'll really get the feeling for it. I mean, if they start ripping off big runs in situational, that's actually, I have often said, hey, run game, I can't really tell because they can't hit the guy. So if somebody wins their rep and then just sort of taps the running back, I mean, from where we stand, it might be hard for me to see like that happening. But in the situational, they're really trying to make a stop. And the referee, there are refs out there, will stop the play when the guy's touched. So if we're seeing like big runs in situational drills, then like last 2 minutes and stuff like that, then we're going to get at least a feeling for where this thing is going. But I also don't think they're going to show all of their cards while the media is there. When they do their preparation, the 2 weeks leading up to the season, we are not at the full practices. So that might be where they really put in the good stuff. But we'll have to wait for the season for that. M. Fez says, you've mentioned a couple times that they might trade the loser of the quarterback competition. Is that just an educated guess or more of an informed statement based on talking with people? Well, I would say that I try to make most of my statements informed in some way, like whether it's by talking to people, whether it's by studying the history, whether it's looking at data and analytics. And I will rarely say, oh, I was told this. I've heard this. So you just have to guess about which opinions are informed from different conversations or not. I will say this, though. This is much more of a common sense opinion of if Kyler Murray loses the quarterback competition, there will be someone whose quarterback gets hurt or someone who is super frustrated with their quarterback situation. And I'm looking at you, Cleveland, that they would say, we would take Kyler Murray, maybe a team, think about like Pittsburgh, if Aaron Rodgers got hurt in training camp and he was just mega done and they were like, it's just not going to work. Let's trade a 3rd round pick for Kyler Murray so we can have a real season and be competitive. The Steelers always want to be competitive. There's also a scenario. Now, I have been against the idea of trading JJ McCarthy, just for the record. He is a cheap backup quarterback if he doesn't win the competition, and you never know if something can happen early in the season where, he's got his chance. And I also think that it's likely that could come up and he can prove himself. And that's why I keep saying to the McCarthy people, don't give up or don't spend all your time online yelling at everybody when he might still get a chance. But there's always a reality there, which is if someone loses a quarterback competition as a former 1st round draft pick, I'm thinking of Trey Lance, where Trey Lance lost the competition to Sam Darnold and Brock Purdy, and they traded him away. And he was a higher draft pick than JJ McCarthy. And I think it was the same year, right? I think it was the 3rd year, because you're looking at, if you go through to the end of the 3rd year, then it's a contract year after that. If you know that you're not going to sign this player to a contract, can you just get some compensation for that and let somebody else try to develop that player? So it's really, educated based on this usually happens. The Carolina Panthers traded for Sam Darnold. Was that after his 3rd year? So that's usually the timing of when this happens. If he were to lose the quarterback competition, he also might demand a trade, and they might just say, you know what? You're not really going to give us much as a backup. Carson's going to give us more as a backup quarterback to support Kyler Murray. We're not making you our long-term guy, so let's make a trade. Again, not my choice. I would not be doing that unless someone gave you a great offer. But is it realistic? Oh, yeah. I mean, it's definitely in the realm of being realistic. Vikings Wild Wolves, how's Jake Golday looking? Really enjoyed my conversation with Jake Golday, where he talked pretty in depth about how he was studying this year. It was a great insight into trying to learn 2 different positions, which he said he is actually trying to learn every single position on the field for every single play. So everything in the playbook, learn everyone's assignments. And that is the way you really have to do it, because your assignment could be just about anything on a given play with Brian Flores. And that's what they told him when he got there. So that's the way that he studied. You'd love to hear that. He strikes me as someone who has the right head on their shoulders to do this, which I think Flores kind of targets that type of person when they actually have draft picks. And his size, his flexibility, his quickness for somebody that big, it's all impressive. It is all impressive. I mean, I haven't seen him take 1st team reps, and I don't think he's going to for quite a while. They've got 2 veteran linebackers there, but if you notice, Blake Cashman hasn't signed an extension. And I do wonder if they really like the way we've been talking about Golday as Van Ginkel, but what if he's more of a middle linebacker? And then you've drafted a starting middle linebacker for years to come in the 2nd round. I think that would be very good for them. So I don't want to say for sure he's just the automatic Van Ginkel replacement, but they are going to cross-train him in case Van Ginkel were to go down. So if he's out for 5 games, I mean, you're going to mix and match maybe a little bit, have Eric Wilson do some of that stuff. He might be a little more suited for it right now, but Golday would probably have to play at least some of his role. So I've liked what I've seen from a physical tools perspective. From an actual performance, I'll just have to say this with a lot of guys, that's when the days are going to have to go on. The preseason performances are going to have to happen, and let's get a big sample. And then we can kind of say, yeah, he's doing great, or yeah, I mean, I think it's going to take a little bit of time there. Joker, if McCarthy can't prove he can throw with timing and anticipation, then he can't win a Super Bowl and we should just be out. At what point does he become a sunk cost for us wasting time developing? Right. I mean, that's part of that trade conversation is, sunk cost is a thing that you always have to think about. You can't chase the fact that somebody was a 1st round draft pick. I felt like they did that in 2018 with Laquan Treadwell, where it was are you sure that you're going to try him at wide receiver 3? Is that really just because you drafted him and you're going to let Jarius Wright go? I mean, that seemed like they were chasing his draft status and chasing the sunk cost. But with McCarthy, when you think about how he performed last year, he kind of performed like you would I mean, not you would want, but you would expect a backup quarterback to play. Like, yeah, there were some struggles. Yeah, there were some really high moments, and he was able to grind out a couple of wins for you. I would have, now I don't know about the timing and anticipation if that's going to just show up. I think that that's going to take more years and more reps and more development to be perfect. But I also think that if Kyler Murray were to get hurt and Kevin O'Connell, and it's giving him benefit of the doubt here, understands what it took to win with JJ McCarthy last year. And if McCarthy took any steps forward at all and played like he did in the Dallas Cowboys game, for example, then you could still win games and be competitive with JJ McCarthy, which is why I wouldn't say get rid of him, because he's a quality backup quarterback right now that might be able to improve along the way. I mean, with Carson Wentz, how much could he even stay healthy over a long period of time with his health record and the way that he plays? And I think he can win you 2 out of 4 games. I don't think he could play more than 4 games. That is the maximum. And I think he could be good enough, but that's the maximum for Carson Wentz that I would want him to play. So the fact that every year somebody's quarterback goes down for the season early in the year would make me worried enough to want to keep a high level backup quarterback, which with actual upside, which is what I would describe JJ as at this moment. You might still win the quarterback starting job, and then I would call him the starter. But as of right now, the way the reps have been done the first couple days, he's a high level backup with upside, which I'm not getting rid of unless I feel like I absolutely have to. Seek Jesus says, how much, if at all, did Banks practice today? So being that it was just a walkthrough, a lot, like he did the whole thing, but it was only a walkthrough. But he was with when they did the end of practice, and what they usually have happen is they will just have 11 on 11s, but in a walkthrough, but it's slow motion. It's like, take the snap, I'm drifting back, I'm getting to the spot where I would throw the ball, I'm reading, and then I'm tossing it to someone. But you're not doing it in full speed in any way. So Banks fully participated in that. In the first 2 practices, he was in there. It wasn't every rep. I didn't count them exactly. I was busy counting the quarterbacks, but I'll pay closer attention when the pads come on and we really start to see more. But he got some 1s, he got some 2s, and he looks giant. And now we'll see when it really ramps up what ends up happening for his rep count. But the fact that he's been out there and doesn't look like there's restrictions on him, he's doing everything in the warm-ups and everything else, is a very good sign for his health so far. B. Phillips says, not wild about hearing the quarterbacks aren't speaking to each other. Did someone say they weren't speaking to each other? I mean, that was what was said in OTAs by JJ McCarthy. Look, I mean, during a quarterback competition, it was Brad Johnson. I wrote a story about it. Go check it out at purpleinsider.football. The newsletter comes out every day. I wrote something with Brad Johnson about this, and he said that he in college competed with a guy who remains one of his best friends to this day. But when they were competing with each other one summer for the starting job, Casey Weldon, who, if you're real old school, you remember the name, he said they didn't really talk and they didn't hang out. And he had said they played tennis together all the time and stuff, but not while they were competing. So I like the way that O'Connell put it. You have to be a good teammate. And even if you don't feel like talking to Kyler Murray because you're competing against him or whatever. Now, personally, I just, I don't know. Like, I think everybody tries to make each other better is how it should go. And you should all be collaborating. You should all be working together and the best man will win. That's how I treat media. I mean, everybody in the media room in some ways is competing against each other, but I've never looked at it that way. I think, well, people can read all of us, but not everybody can play quarterback 1. But I do think that, you can make each other better. You could push each other and that kind of thing and compete for the same spot. But I also don't think it's some sort of tragedy that if they didn't talk to each other. I just thought that maybe McCarthy shouldn't have said it in the public and made it seem like he wasn't being a very good teammate. But it doesn't really make that big of a difference if they're not going to. Now, if McCarthy does not win the job and then still isn't talking to Kyler, then it's a little bit different because part of that backup job is to enhance what the starting quarterback does. And you can't just tell Max Brosmer and Carson Wentz, no, you guys do it. I'm going to sit over here and be mad. That's not going to work out very well. Lucas, we need a Will Riker chart. It's very simple. They were all good. we will count the field goals, but there's no point because every single one of them is good. I'm going to try to catch up with Will at some point. He's a very pleasant guy to talk to and just ask about, like how popular he's become and that kind of thing. And it sounded from Matt Daniels like the guy is still grinding to get even better, but I don't know how he's the best kicker in the league. I don't know how you get better from last year. Joker says, do we actually have good depth? How much is dependent on the rookie class? Well, I mean, if we go kind of position by position, I'm very intrigued in the wide receiver depth, which I wasn't so much before the start of camp, but I think all the guys have stepped up thus far. The tackle depth is good. The guard depth is concerning. Running back, we'll see about Claiborne. I don't think it's bad, though, if you have a draft pick who's really fast back there. You have 2 running backs who can start at this moment. Defensive line, it kind of has to be proven. That's one that would have to be proven for sure. Because Levi Drake Rodriguez, Tyron Dawkins has mostly been an outside linebacker, so there isn't much depth there. But I talked to Ty the other day for the newsletter, and he told me that he has really adjusted his body to be an outside linebacker. He's got the athleticism and the traits to be pretty good out there, so I'd like to see that. But I still think they could add someone an outside linebacker. Linebacker depth feels good. Safety depth feels good. Corner with James Pierre, he's looked very solid as Isaiah Rodgers hasn't been practicing these first couple days. So, in fact, he had that great interception, so he's looked pretty good. I mean, I think it's okay. I think it's better than it has been. But a lot of times, if you go one level down, then it requires somebody who hasn't really been proven yet. And I don't know how many NFL teams don't have that as the case. Like, how many NFL teams do you go to the 3rd tight end, to the 4th wide receiver, to the 3rd running back, and you're like, oh yeah, it's Barry Word as a real throwback. But like, how many times does that happen? It's Michael Bennett, it's Mewelde Moore. It's not often that you have 3 running backs or 4 safeties or whatever. Maybe in like before the AFL and NFL merged, but I mean, most of the time you don't. So I do think it does depend on how some young players are able to develop. Like, does Jacoby Thomas show a lot in this camp? Then you'll feel really good about your safety depth. Does Charles Deming show a lot? Which so far I've really liked how he's looked. Does he show a lot? Then you feel good about your corner depth. Damon Claiborne in the preseason, if he rips it up, you feel good about your running back, right? So yes, the answer is a lot of it depends on a lot of those young players in the rookie class. I think it's a very promising rookie class at the moment. And I've always told you guys that, on draft night, they do the draft and everybody gives these grades. And there are many times where I've walked out onto the practice field, just walked out there and watched whatever number of reps and been like, oh, I don't know. And a lot of that is based on, I'll just give you an example here, Brian Asamoah. Sometimes the size is a real issue. You walk out there and I thought, I don't know if Brian Asamoah could play linebacker. I just don't know if he's big enough. And I think that was some of the issue. And no beef with Brian or anything. I liked the draft pick at the time, but it was like, I don't know, man. That doesn't really look like a linebacker to me. Sometimes it's the way a guy moves. They draft a receiver or something and he can't run routes and you go, I don't know, man. Is that really going to work? I have not felt that with this draft class. I have felt like each drafted player that we've discussed, whether it's like Golday or, Banks, we'll see. I don't know. I can't, the only impression I can give right now is big, but, with Golday and with Demings and, we've seen some of these guys just a little bit and the first impressions are like, okay, you've got my attention. And that goes even into the day 3 picks. So, you Bredesen and Claiborne and so forth. So I'm very interested in where this draft class goes. I think it's a huge story in this training camp. Skull Mongol needs a punting update. I don't have one so far. They haven't really done a lot of punting, but trust me, when somebody punts a football, I'll be there. Sneedley, is there a no trade clause for Kyler Murray? I don't know. I actually don't know. I don't know if it was ever reported. If there was a no trade clause, if someone saw one, let me know. I would guess probably not, but I would also guess that it doesn't matter because why wouldn't he waive a no trade clause if he lost the starting job here and wasn't going to play? And he's not a type of guy that I would say you want really as your backup quarterback. You want a Nick Mullins type. You want a guy who's going to be vocal and be another coach on the field. There's a reason Sean Mannion and David Blau are offensive coordinators after working for KOC. It's like these guys are handpicked as they will help the starter, and that's Carson Wentz. That's why Wentz is here, is to help the starters and then, be an emergency player. But I don't think that that's Kyler. I don't think that's how he is. So even if he had a no trade clause, if he lost the gig, I'm pretty sure he would accept the trade. Class says people have been critical of JJ for not throwing deep as if he's avoiding it or something. Well, one thing I'll say about McCarthy not throwing deep over the first 2 days, I would say it's more of an observation than a criticism for me. It's just an observation. It's noticeable that he has not really pushed the ball down the field. I am certainly not saying, oh my gosh, he didn't push the ball down the field. Why don't you just quit? No one's saying that. But it's just been like, oh, okay. Like a lot of the throws have been, I've charted every one of them, have been, in that 0 to 9 yards, check downs or little rollouts where you just sort of dump it underneath. It might be something that the coaching staff wanted him to do. They may have wanted him to focus on those completions. We don't know what those conversations are like. I guess it's more of a curiosity for me than it is a criticism. Like, will we see him start to open it up in these coming days, or will he play more safe to get completions and to not take sacks? He did take a couple of quote sacks, the other day, but they're not real until the pads really come on. But it's more of just, I wonder why it's happened. Maybe it's just a small sample size. I mean, when you're talking about throwing 15 passes in a practice, it's not like these guys are out there all day whipping 120 footballs around. And then at the end of the day, we tally him up and go, well, he was 98 for 142. No, it's 9 for 14. So you don't get that many reps. And if the cookie crumbles in a certain way where you're supposed to throw it underneath more often, then that might be what he did. Or it came to mind that he might be trying really hard to make sure that he's not making mistakes and sort of falling behind in the quarterback battle, because that was the biggest thing that happened to him last year, was just mistakes. When you look at his sack and turnover percentage, it's kind of wild when you think about sacks and interceptions made up 15% of his snaps or something. I mean, that's crazy. For every 100 snaps, there's 15 interceptions or sacks, because he had 243 pass attempts and was sacked 27 times and picked off 12. So 243 divided by 39. I'm going to do some quick math here. I know it's a little bit of a rabbit hole, but you would have to add the dropback. So you have to add, so it's 243 plus 39. So that's the total dropbacks was 282. And 282 divided by 39, 1 every 7 dropbacks was a sack or interception last year. I mean, that just can't happen. So I'm sure that the emphasis, that's kind of wild to think about, right? I'm sure that the emphasis really was to cut down on those things. And maybe that's what he was focusing on the first couple days, and it will change as we go along. That's why 2 days is a really hard sample to work with. You really need, so the way that it works is we're going to have these 2 unpadded practices, walk through today, intense unpadded practice tomorrow. Pads come on Monday after an off day. And then it's gas pedal down, hard practices, 3 or 4 in a row. Then you get a break. Then the next week, I believe, is the night practice, which is always a big one. And that's where I think we'll start to really know what has happened here at quarterback. So there's time for that to change. That's why it's hard when I say we treat practices like games, and we really can't do that because it's such a small sample that tomorrow he might air it out, and then we'll be talking about that. Classes, isn't it more likely that KOC is pushing each of them to focus on particular throws? I don't know. I don't know. I don't think that's ever the case with KOC's offense. We know that KOC's offense is looking for explosives. He did it with Kirk Cousins. He did it with Sam Darnold. He did it with Nick Mullins, and it didn't really work with Josh Dobbs, but he certainly did it. And we saw McCarthy throw downfield a ton last year. The aim of the offense is to create explosive plays. And O'Connell has always been a huge believer that if you get explosive plays, you score. And that's his philosophy, is he would rather make, 2 or 3 bad plays on explosive plays to get a big one. And rather than try to dink and dunk, he does not really believe that throwing underneath 17 times to score is really the way that you get it done. So I don't think that underneath passes are the main philosophy. But my point is that there's probably not a ton to really look into 2 practices with that, other than just an observation and a curiosity if it's going to go in a different direction. It's a great question, Class G. Thank you for that. Steven says, love to get an outside linebacker edge veteran depth piece this weekend before the pads come on Monday. You might have to be patient, man. This is a team that is going to, I think, make additions at the cut down if they see fit. I mean, they've done it every year. The trade for Thielen will go down in infamy, but they brought in Dalton Reisner late in the process. They brought in Stephon Gilmore late in the process, Fabian Moreau last year. It still makes me a little bit amused sometimes when I look at my YouTube numbers, and one of the biggest videos that I've had since I started the Purple Insider YouTube page is when the Vikings signed Fabian Moreau, because so many people were mad, and then Moreau was fine. In fact, I thought he played well last year. I don't think that, when it comes to Kyler throwing down the field, it's funny about downfield passing. And as I've looked into this, and I've tried to look at a lot of data for this, and I'm going to do a piece about it at some point. It's just been these first couple of days have been kind of chaotic. But the data on downfield passing, you think about it, it made up for quarterbacks last year. If you look at every starting quarterback, somewhere between 10 and 14% for every single quarterback of their passes. It's not very many. And last year, it's like Kyler was really bad throwing downfield last year. He threw 16 passes over 20 yards, completed 6 of them. Like, is that something we can really judge this on? It's kind of a receiver stat when you look at completion percentage downfield or EPA throwing downfield, which I think is an absolutely horrible stat to tell the story, because was the quarterback at fault or the receiver for not tracking it down, or a defensive guy makes a great play? Like, it's all really hard to parse through. What I've seen so far is Kyler has been great at putting touch on the football. And if Kevin O'Connell's offense really requires a lot of those touch throws that are anticipation, throwing to a spot, that at this moment through a couple of days, we've seen a good number of them turn into positive throws. And I think that fits for him. But downfield stats are just a little bit tricky to deal with, because is Marvin Harrison catching your ball, or is Justin Jefferson catching your ball? It's kind of a difference, but we'll see. I mean, that doesn't mean he's perfect by any means. And I haven't seen him really gun one downfield. It's been more of like, a really great one to Dante Fleming. I'm going to put it up in the air and I'm going to let you run under it to a spot and catch it for a big gain. There's like a 45-yard pass to Dante Fleming or somewhere in that range. Like, that's the downfield stuff that I think Kyler's going to be good at. But over the last couple of years, he has been much more underneath stuff. Mike says, after seeing the real number, O'Neal's deal is amazing. Oh, do we have the real number? Do we have the real numbers? Do we have that? Let's take a look. Let me screen share here. Let's go take a look. Do we have the real numbers? Brian O'Neal. I assume you're getting this from, or maybe PFT has it. Oh, we got the real numbers. Okay, let's break it down. Thanks for bringing this up, Mike. And we're going to do it quick before Over the Cap melts the computer. But shout out Over the Cap. Can you imagine what we would be if we didn't have everyone's contract like on this awesome website that doesn't even belong to the NFL? This is so great. Okay, so O'Neal's cap number for this year has dropped down to $14 million, which, let me go quick check how much that gives the Vikings for overall cap space right now. How much does that give them for cap space? In the wrong spot. Everybody hang on. Let's see. Cap space. There it is. The giant thing that says cap space. So the Vikings now have $21 million in cap space. You can do something with that, Nolan. Trade for Vita Vea, maybe. $21 million in cap space. Look at them. Look how far they've come in cap space. Thank you, Rob Brzezinski, for that. Okay, that's a good chunk there. And I think O'Neal's was over $20 million before. So he's at 14.8 this year, only 17.2 next year, which is pretty darn good. And then 28 it goes up to in 2028. That's when the guaranteed salary runs out. And then 29 and 29 in terms of his cap numbers into the future. And if they were to cut him, let's see, how long of the contract is it really? It's really through 2029. That's when it really is. Now let's take a look at the restructure possibility. Okay. The restructure possibility allows for them to cut it in half in 2028 and cut it by a third in 2029. So I agree with you, Mike. I mean, this right here this is why you make it like a triangle of authority. I know it's not really. I know that it's Nolan Teasley is the guy. He's calling the shots. He's number one. But Rob Brzezinski is still the dude when it comes to the salary cap. That is really well done. It's basically a 3-year deal, 2026, 2027, 2028. And then in 2029, you got your option. And they can restructure along the way to make cap space if they need to. And they have a bunch of cap space to work with right now, should they decide to make an acquisition at the trade deadline or before the season starts. That is some good old salary cap a working. Well done. Vikings, Wild Wolves. Kyler's getting paid 1.3 and Wentz is $3 million. No reason to trade Kyler if he doesn't start. Yeah, I just don't think I get where you're coming from. But I think that it would not be a very effective backup quarterback with Kyler Murray if you're putting him in that role. So you would more strongly consider trading him. And then it depends with JJ McCarthy on just how it's going. I mean, you make a fair argument. Like, he's super cheap. Let him be a backup and whatever, right? But I'd be surprised if someone didn't call you and offer you something good. Right? So you paid $1.3 million for a guy in free agency. And let's say someone gives you a 2nd round draft pick because they're super desperate. If it's a good team that needs a quarterback, like let's just say, I don't know, Philly, Jalen Hurts, last week of training camp, steps on a rock and cuts his foot. And he's going to be out for 10 weeks. I mean, if you're Philly, you just made the move to get Jonathan Grenard. Like, your team is still all in on winning the Super Bowl, right? There's things that could happen there. Sneedley, how's the tight end 3 doing? I've really liked what I've seen from actually a couple of guys. Bryson Nesbitt had a really good catch the other day, but really Gavin Bartholomew has stuck out the most. That is a moving up the board, Mr. Mankato, I think. Gavin Bartholomew, I think there's a decent chance at that because he was drafted last year but hasn't played, so he's still eligible. And Ben Urosic looks fine. I mean, kind of like last year. He's a bigger guy. He could definitely block. I mean, I don't know that they're going to be able to keep 4 tight ends based on when I tried to put a 53-man roster together. I kind of screwed it up, but I didn't have 4 tight ends. I couldn't get 4 tight ends on there. So Bartholomew right now would be the leader for me. But if they want more of a blocker on the active roster, they could probably get him through to the practice squad. Steven, outside of the obvious quarterback battle, looking at the rookies to see how they handle the ramping up. When fans are there, pads come on, Banks, Golday, Big Citrus, even Mad Max Bredesen. Totally agree. And maybe I will admit this. It has been so long since there's been a deep draft class that showed promise, because even in 2022, we knew fairly quickly. It was like Lewis Seen's not getting any first team reps. Andrew Booth Jr., I think, was hurt a couple times and just didn't see much. And, Ed Ingram was kind of struggling. It was like, is this going not too good? And of course it did not. It did go not too good. But for this draft class, so far, first impressions have been pretty strong. So does that really solidify itself? Do we start really liking what we see as we go forward? And each guy, kind of just impressions of them, like Dominique Orange, I think has a very good attitude, and Caleb Banks has an interesting personality for sure. Demings, we saw, is a really good talker and all that sort of stuff. So they've got some interesting personalities, some guys that I think are really good culture fits for the Minnesota Vikings. And now it's about making it happen, which, when we get to the ramping up period, that's where they got to start making it happen. Mike said Jefferson said a lot of words, but it certainly wasn't a no. You mean when he was asked about whether he would be a part of it? We all know Justin Jefferson is going to be a part of this discussion. We know that. We know that Kevin O'Connell is going to get together with his staff, with Josh McCown, with Nolan Teasley, with Wes Phillips, and they're all going to talk about what they think of what they've seen, and everyone's going to have their opinion and viewpoint. But Justin Jefferson is management. And a couple of years ago, I asked Kwesi Adofo-Mensah about that, and he said, absolutely, we loop him into all the big decisions because he's your franchise player. And he is the most important part of this offense, hands down, no question about it. You don't want him going out there with the quarterback he doesn't want. You want him going out there with the quarterback that he wants. And, he's kind of said some certain things and certain lines where you're like, oh, could I read into that? I don't know how much you want to read into any of it, but I don't want, if I'm Justin Jefferson, I don't want people thinking that I'm the reason that a decision is being made, because that puts you above the team. And where Jefferson has just been masterful over the last couple of years is he's honest, but he's also a good teammate all the time. And that's not always the case with every wide receiver in the United States of America, but it is for him. Joker says, I want to see how quickly Kyler learns the offense, totally learns it. I think he'll pick it up faster than Cousins or Darnold. Could be. Yeah, could be. He's played better football than Sam Darnold ever did before he arrived here, and he's played a lot of it as a starting quarterback. I have heard things about Kyler and his memorization abilities being very, very strong. And I don't remember who told me this, but it was in the article that I wrote about how it's sort of borderline photographic memory type of thing, which may have played into early in his career. Sort of like when I was in high school and I never studied for any tests because I just had the old noggin for it. But then when I got to college, I was like, man, that's just too much. I better study for the test. And I think that may have happened with Kyler when Drew Petzing got there. And so he's been through this before with an offense of having to learn it like that. I don't know if he'll pick it up faster than Cousins or Darnold. I think the issue with Cousins was not actually the complexity. I think that it was for him that KOC wanted him to throw into some windows that no one has ever asked him to throw into before. The bootleg offenses, really create these big spaces for the quarterback. They create you're running these deep crossers where you could just throw it out to a space and have Justin Jefferson run and get it, or slot fades, which they still use sometimes, but slot fades will, kind of give you that I could just throw it up into a bucket, or these quick passes, like drop back, hit the back foot, hit. Was it Josh? Who was the tight end? Reed that they had? Jordan? Was it Josh Reed? No, that was a receiver. But they had the good tight ends, Vernon Davis. And they had Deshaun Jackson running deep shots for him when he was in Washington, right? So I don't know if he was always asked to have these anticipation balls where you just kind of have to trust it. Just throw it to a spot. And yeah, you might get picked off if it goes wrong, but it'll go right more than it goes wrong if you make the right read, right? So I think that he had to get comfortable with that because he'd played so much football before. And I don't know that if he's going to ask Murray to do that or not, what the windows are going to be like. I know that he likes this anticipation for sure and accuracy. You've seen it in a couple of, the days, and we've even seen some bad throws too, but we've seen some real anticipation throws. So I think that will work pretty well for him. But yeah, all that offensive stuff, that's really what's going to determine if this works or not. Can he get that all down? Darnold struggled with it for a little bit. And then once he got it, it really clicked and it was awesome. At the end of training camp, it was outstanding. And that was probably the last week and a half of training camp in 24. It was really good. AJ says, let's talk about the end of game the end game of the competition. Whoever loses gets traded. Yeah, that might be the end game. It might be, loser gets traded. I think that what that has to do with is what's going on in the rest of the league. If there's a team out there that loses their starting quarterback in training camp, half the Carolina Panthers roster's already gone down for the season. If there's a starting quarterback who drops back, steps to throw, and tears his Achilles, they're going to be looking at the Minnesota Vikings like, can you trade us one of those quarterbacks, dude? You've got two of them. Can you give us one? If there's a team that's desperate to win, right, and doesn't have a good backup quarterback, that could be a Sam Bradford type situation. If that doesn't happen to anyone and every team is pretty comfortable going forward with their quarterback, there might not be a real offer there. Wow, Jim, thank you so much for the super chat, dude. Wow. Unnecessary, Jim, but I really appreciate you, my friend. It was great to meet you the other night too. Assuming that's the same Jim, I think it is. But thank you very, very much. But the point with the competition and who gets traded, I think that's what it really comes down to. They certainly could say, hey, Kyler, whatever, man, you're a $1.3 million backup, but I could see Kyler really being unhappy. I don't know if you want that guy there. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter. You signed him. He signed with you. So whatever, dude. But you want him to be prepared. You want him to be ready to go. You want that guy to be helping the starter. So if he doesn't win, I don't think he's going to be very happy. And you could probably just get a free asset. It also means you'd be very excited about JJ McCarthy. If he wins the job from where we are right now, you're very excited about where JJ McCarthy's going. So you're probably more comfortable thinking, well, we don't need Kyler Murray. We've got our starter now. He's going to be probably our starter going forward. Whereas McCarthy, I would want to leave the door open for, hey, Murray gets hurt week 4. He's going to be out for 5 weeks. Let's see what McCarthy's got. And if he's great, then maybe he stays the starting quarterback, right? There's too many scenarios for me where it just kind of ends up with JJ McCarthy starting and end up working out even, that I wouldn't want to bail on him. But again, if the Cleveland Browns hate their quarterbacks and they are super desperate and they're willing to just make a trade, I don't know if people remember this reference, but Rick Meyer was a really high draft pick and people just kept getting him. People kept starting him, like the Raiders, the Jets, the Bears, like every team would just get Rick Meyer and think like, I know we'll be able to make it work. There's always going to be a team that wants a former top draft pick. And especially with trends being that it's worked out for a few quarterbacks. If you're Cleveland, if you're Arizona, I mean, especially if you're Arizona, why wouldn't you try? So if you get a good enough offer, you have to think about it. Jake says, how likely do you think it is that Teasley looks at Dawkins, Batty, Richter, and Chambliss throughout training camp and feels that one of them elevated enough to not sign a veteran edge? Also throwing, Ingram Dawkins in there. Oh, you said Dawkins. Yeah, Ingram Dawkins is one who's very interesting. What are the chances that happens? I will go like 30% that happens. It does seem that they're excited about Ingram Dawkins there because he's been playing a lot of edge when Van Ginkel or Dallas Turner is off. And there was a rep the other day where Van Ginkel and Turner are on the same side, which we saw a lot of in training camp last year and some during the season. Thank you, John, for the super chat as well. Really appreciate that. And then Dawkins is on the other side. So they got their 2 stars on one side, Dawkins on the other side, like an interesting little mix. And they could do something like that in the regular season. If they like where he's at, they may not make a move. But the concern would be if you lost Van Ginkel for 6 weeks, are you putting in, I guess Eric Wilson becomes Van Ginkel at that point, and Golday becomes a middle linebacker. Can you survive that? Probably. Maybe part of that is also Jamal Adams can be a little bit of an outside linebacker and inside linebacker. Like maybe you cobble it together with some of the inside guys bumping out, and then you play 3 defensive tackles and it's more of Dallas Turner rushes and the other guy kind of does a lot of different stuff. So, but I still think someone's coming. I still think they're going to look somewhere. I just don't know where it is, because you could have a late season trade. Somebody loses a job that's a veteran somewhere else, or someone is on the chopping block from a team that just wants to get younger. And they're like, this would be like when B-Rob got cut. I thought B-Rob still had 1 more year in him, and he decided not to go with any other teams and just be a Viking for life. But, Brian Robinson probably could have latched on with another team and played, 400 snaps for someone. Well, who's that guy elsewhere, right? Sometimes teams overthink this a little bit and they love their young players. And they're like, well, or there's a team like Arizona or Miami, they have any veterans left? Try to get them away because they're going to want to play all their young players. So they've got time to look at that, but I would still say that more likely than not, that they get somebody at some point. I just don't know how soon it's going to be. It could be a while. And at the moment, there's no real rumblings of that. Steven, another thing I'm looking at for things for the ramp up is under the radar players that really step up in 2026 and win Mr. Mankato. As always looking for that. And, this year, there are probably more candidates. I'm going to try to think when the last year this would have been. Like, obviously, the drafting has been, this might be the most candidates that I could make for Mr. Mankato that I think have a real chance. I mean, just starting with the backfield, Damon Claiborne, of course, the wide receivers, Dylan Bell, or if you had somebody else step up, I mean, Price and Felton are ineligible because they've already played and they're already on the team, but someone like Dylan Bell has a chance there. And was there somebody else? Definitely Bell has been the guy we've talked about the most. If you go to the defensive side, I mean, you could find maybe Jacoby Thomas. No, Jacoby Thomas, a 3rd round pick. So he's probably ineligible, but Demings, I don't think Max Bredeson's going to have a great chance to win it, but there's another guy who could potentially have a chance. Like, it's kind of all over the field. There's guys who could be that Mr. Mankato, and those preseason games are going to put that on display. So definitely watching that for the upcoming who starts to get, and that's where there's going to be a lot of 1s and 2s. This team does not practice the 3s a lot. I think Zimmer used to do it a little bit more. But if you start playing with the 2s, then you've got our attention. Like Demings has been in with the 2s. Maya Vaughn, who is also eligible. That was the other name I was looking for. He's eligible to be Mr. Mankato because he didn't play last year, was just on the practice squad. So, I mean, you could see one of these guys, hey, that person's been on the 1st and 2nd team all summer long. They make a couple plays during preseason and bam, you got yourself a Mr. Mankato. Joker says, is the competition better for both quarterbacks like Jefferson suggests? It's a good argument. I think that it is probably better in this way, that with Kyler Murray, what has always followed him along is, well, how hard is he willing to push? I don't want to say how much does he care, but that gets thrown out there a lot. I just think that's unfair. Like, you're not in somebody's head or heart. You don't really know. I hate when I hear people say, well, that guy doesn't care. I don't ever want to be saying that because, he might have been trying really hard behind the scenes, but he's not doing it outward to everybody else. And so it kind of looks that way. I'm not really sure. Anyway, the point is that sort of followed him around from a reputation standpoint. He's got this big opportunity, and there could be an argument you could make that said, hey, we're not going to hand it to you. You had everything handed to you in Arizona. You have to perform, and we are going to push you as hard as we possibly can to get ready for this season. This is your big shot, and we're not just going to give it to you because we have this other quarterback here that we could go with if we want to. And for J.J. McCarthy, it's a little bit of, we talk about those welcome to the NFL moments all the time. Like, this is a welcome to the NFL moment. No one cares. No one cares where you were drafted. No one cares about the excuses that have been made or the explanations, because I think there are things that fall on both sides of that. Like, injuries are an explanation. Injuries are not an excuse. But there's other excuses that have been made and so forth. Like, none of that matters. No one cares. You got to win. You got to perform. Like, that's this league, or we're going to bring in somebody else. And, you could sort of tell when Kyle Brandt was grilling him about that, there was some gritted teeth, but it was just like, I don't understand the question. When somebody performs like this through 10 games, you think I should just keep playing them? Like, with no competition? What? I wouldn't do that for an edge rusher. They didn't do that for Ed Ingram. Like, Ed Ingram struggled and then they went and got Dalton Reisner, right? Like, but you're supposed to just ride it out forever with a quarterback. So it's a little bit of, hey, it's time to, grow up fast for JJ McCarthy and learn how this league works and really lock in. So I think that overall it's probably better, but you got to pick the right moment to like pull the chute and say, all right, well, no more of this, because you got to be ready for week 1. And if it's a complicated offense, you really got to be ready and have enough time. Steven Didenkirk say it took 6 months for him to get his offense down. He said something like that. It was more, I think, of in the middle of 22 that he said it. There was some different version of that he had said a couple of times. But I do wonder, this has been a theory of mine, that in 2022 when O'Connell arrived, and remember, he had worked for Chip Kelly, he had worked for Jay Gruden, he had worked for Sean McVay. Like, I think that he came in and threw every idea under the sun at Kirk Cousins and was like, well, we could do this, and we could do this, and we could do this, and we could do this. And I do think by the time they got to 2023, it was evident what Kirk was comfortable with. And that's where they were really locked in lockstep. Kirk performed well in 2022, no doubt about it. But in terms of his efficiency and consistency, it was more in 2023 at the beginning of the season, and then he gets hurt. But by the time Darnold shows up, he was able to get it by the end of camp and then came out great. I mean, you couldn't have asked for anything better from Sam Darnold. What were they? Were they 7-0? And he had played awesome in about 5 of those games. I mean, so maybe everybody's a little bit different, but I also think as you go along as Kevin O'Connell, you live and learn. And I think that if he hasn't learned from some of the stuff when it comes to the complexity, then that could be problematic for Kyler Murray. But Kyler Murray has also played in other offenses as well. Jerry says, why do people keep suggesting someone gets traded if they lose the competition? I'm definitely not trading a 23-year-old quarterback. That's totally a fine opinion, and I am on the same page as you, Jerry. I would not be trading him away. But when you look forward, though, here's the one reason that you would consider it, is that he would be going into the last year of his contract next year. And if he loses it and it's just not good, and you just don't feel good about it at all, and you just feel like there really isn't anything else we can do here. He just needs a fresh start somewhere else. Someone who could play him. Well, we just can't do that. And we're going to draft a quarterback next year or stay with Kyler or get a free agent. Like if you just sort of decided you're at the end of that road, that's when you would do it. I think the unpredictability of the quarterback position would not make me feel good about getting rid of any quarterback. Steve Palazzolo, who I listen to all the time on Check the Mic, like he talks about even drafting Ty Simpson. I was not the hugest fan of them drafting Ty Simpson, the Rams, but it's like anytime you bring in a quarterback, it's a plus move because you never know which one can pop up and end up being good. So I tend to maybe not agree with the total extreme there, but mostly I am in agreement is hanging on to quarterbacks as long as you possibly can. You never know where this is going to go. There's been so many historical twists and turns to the quarterback position. I'm not a huge fan of it, but if they feel like they're just totally done as an organization with him, he's done with them, he wants to be traded, another team's offering a second round pick or something, like, okay, well, Teasley wants as many draft picks as he could possibly get his hands on. Steven Thielen in the Ring of Honor, he might be someday. Yeah, I think he will be in the someday. We've seen the Hall of Famers kind of do that. I know that they want Kevin Williams to get in the Hall of Fame, and he deserves it. Adrian Peterson's going in the Hall of Fame, but I think Thielen someday will be there. John seems that the Vikings media basically ready to confirm Kyler as a starter, but outside reporters have the clear edge to J.J. McCarthy. Hard not to see a little bias. Well, here's the trouble, John, is that the Vikings media, myself, Star Tribune, Pioneer Press, ESPN, we're the only ones who have been there the first couple days. So I don't know who you're talking about for outside media. I honestly have no idea. Like, who are these people? They haven't even seen practice. But here's the deal, John. I always say this. Our opinions don't mean a whole lot. And press conferences sometimes don't mean a whole lot. Sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't. You know what means a lot is what they do, what the team shows you. The reason Purple Insider tends to get things right, like the fact that they signed Kyler Murray, is you got to go back a little ways in the podcast for that one, but it's true, is because you watch what they do, right? You watch how they act. And when one quarterback gets decidedly more first-team reps in the first 2 days, we're going to say it's leaning toward Kyler Murray because that's the facts. When Kyler hits the explosive plays in practice, that's the facts. Reporters are just going to give you the facts and then analyze them and tell you what they mean. That's what we do. We're not looking at it hoping and dreaming through starry eyes, looking at J.J. McCarthy like some people that analyze this team might be doing and saying, well, I fell in love with McCarthy at Michigan and I'm just going to ride it to the end. Well, that's not how reporters do it. We don't fall in love with anybody. We just go with the facts. And sometimes, we're not good at predicting stuff correctly. Like how people are going to play. No one ever knows until they actually get out there. But when it comes to stuff like this, if the fact of the matter is one guy's taking way more reps with Justin Jefferson than the other, well, then it's leaning that way. That could change tomorrow. Here's the other thing that reporters do. When the facts change what we're saying. So if the facts change tomorrow, then I'll change with them. And I don't get some sort of emotional response. It doesn't matter one way or the other to me emotionally which guy starts. It's the fact of the matter. And then my opinion is that it's a much better idea to have Kyler Murray start for both quarterbacks. I think McCarthy needs way more development before he's ready to be a winning starting quarterback in the league. I think he can definitely get there. And I think that based on all the information that I've gathered over 4 months, from talking to dozens of people, to watching all the tape, to looking at all the data and everything else, that I think Kyler Murray has his best chance ever to succeed with the Vikings, and he has the skill set to do it. Could be wrong, but what you do as a reporter is you gather the facts, you put them together, you try to come up with conclusions. So that's probably the difference in what you're seeing. But I'm telling you, a lot of these people that are talking about this and how it's gone the first 2 days, not even there. So Mike says Thielen is a lot of things, certainly not, would not just, oh, come on, man. That's wrong. That's incorrect. You're just wrong on that one, Mike. Steven, let's have people, the people decide the QB1 winner. Well, some people on the internet seem to think that they are. Some people on the internet seem to think if they leave enough comments or tweet enough and yell at enough people that will change their minds. I promise you it won't. M. Kisback, clearly Jefferson wants JJ to figure it out. Kyler is a run first. That's totally false. Totally false. Sorry, man. Just totally false. Kyler Murray scrambled about 40 times in 2024 and threw about 540 passes. Is he run first, or have you never watched him? I got the numbers. Throw anything you want at me, buddy. 4 months. 4 months I've been studying this guy. Ask me about a game. Ask me about a throw. Ask me about the numbers. I got them all. Mike, I think KOC's offense would benefit a lot from some more bread and butter stuff rather than always trying to outsmart the opponent. Sometimes you need to trust your guys to be better than the other guys. And, that's something that Jefferson has said at times in the past. He has said, like, hey, I could just beat my guy. Like, it's okay. Let's just line up and go. And I know that we can do it. And there have been times I felt the same way with O'Connell. And this is where his offense does work. And it worked for Kirk, even though there were growing pains, and it worked for Darnold. And it honestly worked for Nick Mullins. And they were this close to winning the game in Cincinnati, the game in Detroit. Was there another one? But there was at least those two that with Nick Mullins would have gotten them into the playoffs. And so if you're Kevin O'Connell, I guess you could see why he would be saying, look, if we run it a little bit better and then we do this, it does work. Now, what I would like to see is them be a little less predictable run and pass under center. There was some numbers the other day that were out there about teams and what they did under center versus shotgun. And it was a very high percentage under center of runs for the Vikings. I think mixing in shotgun runs is something that we will see a lot more this year from them, with Frank Smith coming over from Miami with the influence there. So I'd like to see a little more of that. But I tend to agree with you in some ways of, look, if your stuff is working, you don't have to try new stuff every single play. You don't have to always have long, detailed plays with a bunch of changes and everything else. Sometimes you're just better than the other team and you should just accept that and lean into it. That's how I felt about the Super Bowl with Clint Kubiak. I loved the Super Bowl game plan from Clint Kubiak, which was basically like, there is no way this other team is scoring against us. Let's just pound their face in, get Darnold to make a few throws, good to go. But that a lot of times, though, gets dictated by how good your defense is, right? And this is where I will be watching very closely for Kevin O'Connell to see if his words match up with what he actually does. Because he said last year that he learned that sometimes you can just grind out a game when your defense is playing well or the other quarterback is not playing well. And you don't always have to go for the 500-yard game, the top 5 rated offense, the et cetera, et cetera. And I want to see evidence of that this year. That doesn't mean just run. But sometimes, like you're saying, like, does it mean just, hey, dude, if the bootlegs are crushing them, just crush them with the bootlegs. If quick passes to Hockenson are killing them, just keep going there. You don't have to take a 30-yard shot down. You see what I mean? Like, if Jordan Mason's running over a team, just let him run. There's been times like that, but I also don't want to lose sight of the fact that I think the passing game has been very, very good when Kirk or Darnold were in there. Stephen, how will, it's Frank Smith, his running game affect the complicated KOC offense? Will add even more wrinkles and complexity or simplify it a bit? That I don't know. I haven't heard anybody talk about it being complicated. I don't think it's complicated when I watched it. Here's what I think it is. I think it's a lot of very simple concepts with a little bit of spice. And that's more of a game planning thing, I think. The way that I believe this to work from talking to these players all these years is when you get the playbook, you learn the verbiage, you learn all that stuff, and all of it is just thrown in there to the game plan. So let's say that there is a word for you're lining up in a bunch formation right as 3 wide receivers, and there is a word for the number 1 wide receiver to go in motion. And maybe it's a certain type of motion. There's motion where they go halfway and come back. There's full motion to the other side. So let's say there's another word that is for a wide receiver to block the safety on a play. So all of that is just words that you need to know. There's nothing complicated about that, but there's 3 things that need to be tagged into that play for the wide receiver to know that he's doing this type of motion from that formation. I think that's what it means by complicated. I think it's just like a lot of memorization, not so much that you can't do it. And all of that stuff, if you can lock it in, then you can have a wide receiver doing a lot of movement and lining up in different places and blocking in unique spots. And you're going to game plan that going into the week and you're going to practice it. That's where a lot of the complications come from. Sean would love to track if Gavin Bartholomew can become Johnny Munt 2.0 over the course of camp. Can I just interject that I'm really enjoying the line of questions and comments tonight. This is good. I feel like we're covering a lot of different stuff in a more rational way than maybe last night. I think that Bartholomew kind of tracks that way. I mean, Munt was a little bit better in terms of profiling as a blocker. Like he was bigger. I think Bartholomew is willing. That's what it looked like in college, that he's got some grit to him, some sandpaper in his pants or wherever. But he's not as big. Jurosik is bigger. So will they want a blocker there? I really think Bartholomew could catch the ball, though. I mean, some tight ends that I've seen in the past, it just sounds like they're catching a cinder block when they catch the football. Very smooth when I see him catch the ball. Joker, McCarthy being unprepared to run the complete offense last year was one of the most shockingly bad things about the season. Yeah, I think as the season went along and it felt like he couldn't get it down, that was kind of surprising. That was something that we didn't expect based on how camp had gone. It didn't feel like he didn't have the offense in camp. It felt like the accuracy was inconsistent and then got better toward the end of it, but we never felt like that. That's where I think that he was really robbed in those 5 games because, yeah, for week 2, definitely did not have it locked in what he was supposed to do. And that showed, and it kind of showed in some of KOC's comments as well throughout the season. But I mean, if he had played Cincinnati, if he had played Pittsburgh, if he had gotten a chance to lead the team for those games, could he have kind of really locked it in more? It was 5 weeks off, play a couple games, miss another game, injured his hand. It just, never really got in a rhythm of running an offense, which I think would have helped at least to some extent. I don't know that it would have completely changed the outcome, but I think it would have helped. Steven, if McCarthy wins the QB1 job, might give a super chat. You don't have to. It's never required. Just you jumping in and asking questions and being involved is always much appreciated. Mike, isn't Darnold didn't he have a much worse season in Seattle, but way more team success and indictment of KOC's offense being needlessly complicated? I don't think that Darnold had a much worse season in Seattle. I mean, the Super Bowl, but even if you're talking about the regular season, I don't think it was much worse. He got sacked a lot less and he did have interceptions, but that's an offense that pushes the ball downfield and is going to get picked sometimes. I mean, let's take a look what PFF and the data had to say about each of the seasons. Because I didn't really look where he ranked last year, but I mean, I thought there was some times where he had a stretch where it didn't go well. So he was 12th with 4,000 yards, 67.7% completion percentage last year, 29 big-time throws to 19 turnover-worthy plays, and a 99.1 rating, which was 15th. So that was 2025. And in 2024, he was 13th. So he was basically the same PFF grade. Now he threw fewer interceptions and more touchdowns, but they don't really do it by like fantasy stats. About the same completion percentage, about the same ratio of turnover worthy plays to big time throws, and a 102.5 rating, which let's do a minimum here. That was 6th. I don't think I had a minimum on this. Did I get that right? Oh, wait. No, sorry. I didn't put the minimum on. He was 10th in 2025 and he was, oh, look at that. 10th in 2024. So the minimum dropbacks are required there. So he wasn't 15th in passer rating. Where was he in passer rating? He was 11th in 2025 and 6th in 2024. So really, I mean, by a lot of those numbers, he was basically essentially the same quarterback, just with more interceptions and a little fewer touchdowns. That's probably where that comes from. But I think he was essentially, think about this though, like essentially, if you take the same version of 2024 Sam Darnold, give him a really excellent run game, the sacks are reduced significantly because he has a run game. He's playing in a lot of favorable situations that really cut down on the sacks. And yeah, I mean, it's a little bit more, simplified with a number one defense or whatever in the league. I mean, yeah, you got yourself a chance to win a Super Bowl, and that's what he did. Jake, can you tell me one thing you like about Kyler's game and one thing you dislike about Kyler's game? I will do that in just a moment, but let me remind you of the FanDuel question of the day was, I'm going to read you off the guys who are at the top of the list for Offensive Player of the Year since Justin Jefferson spoke today. Jahmyr Gibbs at plus 650, Bijan Robinson at plus 900, then Jamar Chase plus 1,000, and Justin Jefferson is plus 1,800. Puka Nacua, Christian McCaffrey, Jackson Smith-Njigba also involved in the top conversation. I would like to know from you, running back or wide receiver, who do you think will get Offensive Player of the Year? And, Jefferson is right in that mix of wide receivers, but what position? Like, do you think running is really back enough for one of those guys to get it? Or is it going to be a wide receiver again? Because I think the league is still giving wide receivers the Offensive Player of the Year, unless someone goes crazy like Saquon 2 years ago. Also want to just tell you about a couple of sponsors of the show. And I know you guys are going to hear a lot about me snoozing. No sleep in camp, except for when I really need it. Then I am really enjoying my bed from my mattress from Brooklyn Bedding. Holy cow, it's been such a life changer. It's called the Aurora Luxe mattress. It's just been awesome. And it's made in the USA and it's built to last. I have been so guilty of buying cheap mattresses in the past, and I will never do it again. I'll tell you that, but I won't have to do it for a long time because these are built to last in the USA, and the craftsmanship of this mattress, it matters. It's solid, intentional, built to last. And when we made the switch, all of a sudden the spine felt so much better. The wife and I both have some back issues. We felt instantly better getting our sleep. So, and look, if we didn't, there's a 120 night comfort trial. If you're not comfortable, then you could swap it or return the mattress hassle-free. And we got it exactly the right size, exactly the right comfort level for us. It's just been great. So brooklynbedding.com and use the promo code PURPLE at checkout and you get 30% site-wide off in their back-to-school sale. That is brooklynbedding.com. And the promo code is PURPLE for 30% off the site-wide. Also, want to tell you about, we've all been at a restaurant or had some housework done. I certainly have had too much of that over the last couple of years. And when someone goes the extra mile for you and makes sure they get the job exactly right, it really shows you something. It shows you they care. And what you're looking for if you're a hiring manager is people who will go the extra mile and show that they really want your job. So you want it, people who will take the extra step and show you that they're truly interested. And ZipRecruiter is a way to stand out from the others. You could try ZipRecruiter at ziprecruiter.com/audio. And they have a new feature that shows you who is the most interested and qualified candidates first, so you meet the right people faster. All about saving you time. ZipRecruiter's powerful matching technology finds those candidates quickly, and they tell you in their own words why they're interested in your job. So try ZipRecruiter right now and meet great candidates who will take the extra step for you. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try it for free at ziprecruiter.com/audio. That is ziprecruiter.com/audio to meet your match on ZipRecruiter. Okay, back to not that. There we go. Back to your question. So you wanted to know one thing I like about Kyler and his game and one thing I don't like. Well, I would start with when it comes to the way that he throws the football, the pure, how it looks, how it comes out of his hand when he throws in rhythm is absolutely excellent. And I don't want to say he's Drew Brees, because then I'll get a lot of comments. But there is a Drew Brees nature to when it works, when it clicks, and when it looks right. And I mentioned this yesterday, but the throw at the end of practice to Jefferson, a deep corner route, it was just flawless. I mean, just the ball, the way it traveled through the air, the way he let it go, it was just a beautiful football. And I think that he has the capability to do that pretty often. Not as often as Drew Brees, but pretty often. Just throws a very catchable, on time, great arc, like everything that you're looking for. The downside is that sometimes it feels like if there is pressure in his face, up the middle, that there's a little bit of just kind of winging it, or there's not seeing at all where to go with it. And that's where mistakes can be made. He's not a monster turnover or turnover worthy play guy, but there's still a lot of regrettable plays that happen because it feels like he's just pressured in his face and doesn't really stay like how Sam Darnold really stood tall in the pocket. Well, can't really stand tall in the pocket. And there are times where he just will miss people, not see them, not know they're there, and scramble. That's what I've seen on tape. Not so much in practice because there hasn't really been a real pass rush. But those are two things that stand out to me and I think cause some of the erratic nature. I don't know, Pime, if they are still using the VR. I honestly don't know. Some people like it, some people don't. Let's see. Steven, the other thing I forgot to mention is O'Neill's contracts. Oh, yeah, I got to the contract structure. Yeah, it shows you how far I'm behind in the comments. Sorry about that. How many different offenses has he had to learn since college? Are you talking about Murray or McCarthy? I mean, McCarthy has probably just learned Michigan's and then the Vikings, and Kyler has learned, well, he kind of had a similar offense in college as the NFL and then Petzing's offense. So it's not many more, but he's had a lot more playing time in Drew Petzing's offense. He played, 22 games over the last 2 years in that offense and performed overall pretty well. So he had to learn a real offense with Petzing and with Jonathan Gannon. Petzing was here. He was influenced by Kevin Stefanski, Gary Kubiak. That's where his roots really are. And that was kind of some of the offense that he tried to implement. And I was even talking today on the sideline, looking at his under center numbers in 2024, his quarterback rating, and you can look this up if you want to, passer rating at Pro Football Reference, just go to splits and then go down and look at it. 2024 for Kyler, 99.7 passer rating under center. And he took 22% of his snaps. Threw 22% of his passes under center, which was only 4% different than Sam Darnold in 2024. So, he did those things under center that I am like a little surprised when I started looking up the data, but when I watched the games back, I could see it, that you wouldn't have expected for Murray to be able to do. Have success under center. And he learned how to do that. He was only under the shotgun pretty much exclusively for Cliff Kingsbury. So there was a lot that he learned. There was things at the line of scrimmage, there were motions, there were checks and all that stuff where I don't know how much of that stuff was really there. And that's why I think teams figured out their offense under Cliff Kingsbury. Dan, if the Vikings start 0-3, which can happen, will KOC make a quarterback change if the offense is so-so? That would be an argument for keeping the loser of the quarterback competition, wouldn't it? Is, hey, if a team offers you a 4th round pick for JJ McCarthy, like, no, we'll just wait and see what happens. Yeah, if the offense struggles and they're 0-3, I mean, it's certainly possible that he might have to pull that lever. And that's the position that you're in. You don't have Matthew Stafford. You don't have a superstar quarterback. You are in a spot where if you get into a hole, that's the last lever to pull. That is the position. That is the nightmare spot. But you play 3 good teams to start the season. I don't think that, Tampa Bay is that good, but they're pretty good. Oak Dog, Seattle had a good defense and offensive line. Yeah, they certainly did. And their offensive line, I don't think actually pass protected well. They didn't grade well. Their offensive line actually graded pretty poorly in pass protection, but they were always in favorable spots because they ran a lot and they didn't ask Darnold to throw a lot from 3rd and long. I mean, this is like a little bit of a counterintuitive strategy or counter analytic strategy, but makes sense when you lay it out there, is that now that teams go for 4th down all the time, running on 2nd down is not as crazy as it used to be. Running on 2nd down used to be a very bad idea because then you're just set up with 3rd and long a lot of times and you're in trouble. But when you're having a lot of success on the ground, you run on 2nd and 10, you get 5 or 6 yards because you're running well and you have a beastly offensive line in the run game. And then all of a sudden your quarterback's feeling pretty good at 3rd and 4, right? So, that was what they did a lot in Seattle. And maybe you'll see that when it comes to Kyler Murray this year. I don't know if you'll see it a lot, but maybe you'll see it a little bit more where they're just trying really hard to get him in favorable situations. Because even if you fail on 3rd and 4, you should go for it on 4th and 4. So the math for EPA might be a little bit changed there. And I'd have to ask to somebody who does analytics. Maybe if I run into the Vikings' new assistant GM who came from the analytics world, I can actually ask him this question. Henrik says, your husband coaches football, says that the Vikings are going to surprise a lot of people this season. Well, thank you for dropping that. It's cool that he coaches football. And I mean, I think that when you look at from an over-under perspective, FanDuel has them at 8.5. If they won 11 with Kyler Murray or with JJ McCarthy, I think that would surprise a lot of people, even though that's where I think that they can be. Scott, yep. I mean, there's a pretty clear connection between the Wilfs owning the team for 20 years, winning 3 playoff games and starting 25 different quarterbacks. Perhaps the strategy of hiring a mercenary quarterback isn't working. Well, that's all. The strategy of drafting a quarterback hasn't worked during their time either. Christian Ponder, Teddy Bridgewater got hurt. Here we are with JJ McCarthy. So there are a few franchises that have just never really been able to lock this in, truly. And the Vikings always chasing it. And that's why there's so much disappointment for JJ McCarthy if it doesn't work out, is that, look, I was talking about it last year. I remember talking about it with Drew McGarry on this show right before the season. And we talked about like it might finally be over, this long search for the quarterback. And unfortunately, it just has not gotten there. Some of you guys are too funny. I feel sad for the audio listeners, sometimes just breaking out in laughter, but some of you guys make me laugh. Mike, you don't think that KOC's offense is resilient, hence why his offense struggles in big games? Now, they've struggled in it didn't struggle against the Giants in the playoff game. That was more defense that I think struggled in that game. Definitely against the Rams. That was really because they couldn't block. Have they struggled in big games? I mean, they were able to beat, I'm thinking of like, what are the big games that they've played over the years? The Packers game in 2024 was pretty big. I mean, I think what you mean, resilient might not be the right exact word. I'm trying to think. I know what you're saying. I'm trying to think of the exact word for it. Like it can be maybe fragile, where if you can't run the ball consistently, then your fragility is higher because you're really relying on something that is more boom or bust by pushing the ball down the field. If you can push the ball down the field and run, then your offense becomes much more solidified because even if one thing isn't working, you've got something else to fall back on. So it's sort of like if a team can shoot threes and is really good at mid-range shooting. You don't want a mid-range shoot all the time, but man, if you're really struggling from 3, you can always get a bucket. Does that make sense? I think that's where you're going. Oh, I like this prediction for FanDuel question of the day for Ryder Mike is a offensive player of the year will be a tight end. We should look at that. What are the tight end? Who's the highest tight end on this? Who is the highest tight? Wow, this is a very bold prediction. I'm scrolling and I'm Trey McBride at plus 7,000. That would be insane. Brock Bowers at plus 6,500. Either one of those guys win offensive player of the year. That would be nuts. That's an interesting bet, though. I like it. I like you bringing that to the table. Yeah, no, Scott, I saw that Judd counted the reps today. The reps today no, not really. It's a walkthrough. So the reps today don't mean a whole heck of a lot. They're just walking through the plays that they're going to run tomorrow. Now, it might mean, now if they took, I don't know. I don't even want to go there because I've never seen walkthrough reps matter to what they're actually going to do out there. So no, that doesn't say a whole lot. Now, I don't know what they're going to do. It could be 50-50 and maybe it's slightly more Kyler or maybe not. But when they do a walkthrough, they do a lot more reps than they actually do when they're out there in a real practice. So you might have, in terms of passes and stuff, you might only have 15 passes, but in a walkthrough, you can run a lot of different stuff because you're just walking through it. You're not straining everyone's body. But is that a big deal? No, I wouldn't say so. But I will say this. I respect the hell out of Judd for still trying to count up who was taking the most first team reps or the most, that must be total reps that he had, that he still had a rep count on a walkthrough. I've never done that before because I don't know what they're talking about out there during the walkthrough, but that's good. That is fun. That's really fun. You think it'll matter? Yeah, I don't think it matters. It definitely, 100% it matters tomorrow. I don't think that today is telling for what they're going to do tomorrow exactly. This is like get stuff done, but I do think it will absolutely matter for everybody coming back, all the fans and stuff. Yeah, I think tomorrow's a pretty big practice, and then the really big practices start next week. Joker, yeah, the offense might be too complex or superfluous. That's a great word, but it definitely is not impossible. Yeah, that's been shown for sure. Rep count in the first 10 minutes or I'm out. I'm sorry, man. There wasn't a rep count. Unless you're Judd counting up who's out there for a walkthrough. Because Judd is the best, man. That's just crazy. Aaron, KOC's offense too dependent on the deep ball. Would be nice for him to open up some quick strikes. The way that Kirk was playing it in 2023 was a lot of underneath stuff to Hawkinson. So I think that those options are there. I just don't know that Sam Darnold ever took those options or that JJ McCarthy did either. But I think when Kirk Cousins got really confident in the offense was when he was working Hawkinson a lot underneath. And then the defenses had to pay attention to that too. Then it opened up some of the deeper stuff. And I really believe that McCarthy was trying a little too hard last year. And that's the whole power of completions thing. I think he just tried a little too hard at times last year to, this is what the play is. This is where I'm supposed to go down the field. This is the intent of the play. So I'm going to force it into this window when really it's like, not quite there. Just get a completion. Right. So yeah, I definitely get your point though. PY, I think I did shout you out for the super chat, but LaDainian Tomlinson or Marshall Faulk. Peak Marshall Faulk is among the best ever. It didn't last very long. He's not actually talked about as one of those guys, one of those short peak guys, but he really is. It was greatest show on turf, and it was, I actually think LaDainian Tomlinson was the better running back, probably. But Marshall Faulk was playing for the greatest show on earth and was averaging 12 yards a check down. It's pretty nuts. But Faulk could go down the field more than most running backs. I would probably give an ever so slight to Tomlinson, even though I think Faulk's numbers for that short period of time were better. But thanks for the super chat, man. It took this long to have a random person insult me. It must be a calm day. Actual football 1 week away, the Hall of Fame game. Yeah, is that actual football, Steven? I'm kidding, but, I always struggle to get excited for the Hall of Fame game. Oak Dog, is it possible that the rep count going to Kyler is an effort to get him more familiar with the offense? So the competition execution based on system versus knowledge? Yeah, it's possible. It is definitely possible. But when they've had OTAs, they've had time to learn the offense. If you're really giving both guys the equal reps, it's not going to be this slanted as it was the other day. The other day was vast majority Kyler Murray. So I don't know that it would have been quite that. And you can also learn the offense with the second team. So it's not like you can't learn the offense with Ty Felton out there who's run the offense too, or Michael Juergens. Like these guys know it. They're just backup players, but they know it. So no, I don't really think that would be it, but it might be. If it is, then that will show itself. And that's why the point is like, we're in the ramp up here, but when it really gets going is over the next couple of days. And then we are in full camp mode. It's just that everyone's frothing so much to give takes and what they think and, get involved in the conversation. And I'm frothing as well with the quarterback charts and discussions and everything else. But truly the first 2 days are not really that telling. So yeah, I mean, it's altogether possible that that's what they've been trying to do is just get him more familiar with his teammates and then it will even out. That's why we're going to have to find out. That's why I wasn't totally dismissive of that last night and when I was talking about it. Bloody Soup, how is Brandel looking? Couple of snap issues I'm concerned about. There's a lot of belief in Brandel from a knowledge perspective, from a trust from the other offensive linemen, which is important. It's just that the snaps got to be on point, and that's something that's got to get used to. Steven doesn't seem like Dwight McGlothern making the final 53. Yeah, it does feel that way. And I don't even know if it's going to be practice squad. Like he kind of had that similar to Ivan Pace or Gabe Murphy. Like these guys had like the UDFA darling kind of label. And then just, I don't know what really happened, but McGlothern's been much more with the third team. It does not look like he is on pace at the moment unless there's some injuries. Yeah. Sneely, did they just walk through today because of the rain? No, it's probably planned. I think every year they do the first two practices are very intense, and then they give some rest and a walkthrough, and then they go back and have an intense practice, then an off day. Like I think KOC is very mindful of the amount of wear and tear that are on these guys, especially with a lot of veterans. But certainly, yeah, I mean, rain made it an easy choice if they hadn't already done it. Bloody Soup, I want a solid center that can lead the O-line. He has got to be that guy. I totally agree with you. I think center is the most underappreciated position in the entire sport. And Brandel has it down from a couple of perspectives. I think mentally he's strong. I think there's a lot of belief in him, the hard road that he's taken to get there. But I also think that there are a lack of snaps that he's ever done in his career. And he does have kind of a body type that doesn't usually match up with centers, like being taller. And I don't want to say slender. He's still a big guy, but he's not like wide as a Mack truck, which some of those guys, if they're going to be taller, are. The build is much more of a guy who's a tackle. So there's some concerns there, I think, for sure, but the snaps have to get on point. That's definitely something that has to happen soon. Forrest, is it realistic to think they will allocate touches for Claiborne in the regular season? Seems KOC gets stubborn and kind of runs Jones into the ground. You're right. You're definitely right about that part. And that's why I've said I think they should lean heavier into Jordan Mason, but don't be shocked if it's a 50-50 split. I would like to see them at the beginning of the season have designed things for Damon Claiborne and maybe not make it super obvious when he's in there, but finding ways to put the ball in his hands because he's just so freaking fast and bendy and explosive that you got to find a way, whether it's 5 plays a game and he runs on 3 of them and maybe you have to throw a swing pass to him or you have something designed out of empty so you're not asking him to pass protect. But you are right that there has been a little bit, you could call it stubborn, but also it's not like Kenny Nwangwu has become a star running back elsewhere. We'll see on Ty Chandler, but he's 3rd or 4th on the depth chart in the New Orleans. So it's a new guy. It's a new situation, but it also might come down to Damon himself. Can you get down everything? It's not just pass protection, but Wes Phillips has always called it the track. So can you be on the right track where you're supposed to run this way behind this block with this timing? If he could do that, then he's got a chance to get involved for sure. I'm going to speed it up here a little bit because I'm going to have a big show tomorrow and I got some writing to do. And I also want to go for a jog because it's cool out. But great audience today. Thank you guys so much. It's been a really fun chat. So I'm going to speed it up. I'm going to read some of your stuff, but I won't maybe give 10 minutes on each one. Joe, I work for SI now. Okay, so what happened with that is they reached out to me and asked if I would contribute a couple things for them, like a column and maybe sort of share some of my work from the newsletter to promote it. And I said yes. So yeah, I'm going to have a weekly column on Sports Illustrated, and every once in a while you might see something that's on the newsletter on there that's really just to promote the newsletter. So that hasn't changed. I have not like dumped the newsletter. So purpleinsider.football, 100%, like go sign up. That's daily stuff. And they're just going to, so for example, like mailbag questions, I'll take a couple and highlight it over there to promote the newsletter. So, which will have like 20 questions. But thanks for asking, Joe. I'm glad you saw that. Joker says teams are probably going to game plan to attack Brandel. Besides snapping, is there an exploitable weakness in his game? Yeah, I think it's probably he's not low to the ground. Maybe a little bit in terms of explosiveness in the run game. Can you get underneath people is probably a bit of a weakness. Last year, the run blocking wasn't so stellar. And I just think that low DTs, getting low and around him is possible. Yeah, how was Brandel today? In the walkthrough, nothing happened. Pads, just say it again. All the big guys, if you ask me about them, just give me 2 days and we'll start to get into that. Pads. Because I can't tell, other than snapping, I can't tell if they're not really going against each other. What was Wentz had 10 reps? What was his completion percentage? I don't know exactly, but I do know that because I wasn't tracking Wentz. I know that he hit 2 bombs that were actually kind of awesome. And one of them was to Dylan Bell and the other one was to Miles Price. And both of those guys made great catches. So that's the depth wide receiver battle. Those guys have something rare, actually. You are a wide receiver 6 and you have Carson Wentz throwing you the ball. That's awesome. A guy who's won a lot of games in the NFL. Like, how rare is that? Most teams don't have that, for sure. You're right, Steven, that with Brandel, the inside the shoulder stuff, the low stuff. Yep. Oak Dog, was Rossini right about her concerns regarding JJ not being ready last year? Well, I think that played out, didn't it? That played out in her reporting. I mean, I did think that some of her reporting, as much as it's been called into question, had stuff that did raise an eyebrow for me. Like, she had reported that they felt like if they had kept Sam Darnold, that they would maybe like lose JJ McCarthy or lose confidence. He would lose confidence or something. I was like, if that's what you thought, then I don't think you should have gone with him. Scott, who has more voice in drafting of JJ McCarthy, KOC or Kwesi? No matter what anybody says, I will always believe, based on what was said during the process and after the process, that KOC led that. That doesn't mean it wasn't a discussion with a lot of other people and there weren't a lot of opinions to get on the same page, but O'Connell was brought here to do that. He was brought here to draft the next quarterback. And if you read the Albert Breer piece about the search for JJ McCarthy, the way that they approached it, that he went, it's really good. It's really in depth. He went to Michigan. He sat down with them. He did the whiteboard. He did whatever else. It's very, just like with Sam Darnold leaving, it's very hard for anyone to convince me that he's not the most influential person for Sam Darnold leaving and for JJ McCarthy being drafted. But you know what? Everybody makes mistakes with quarterbacks, and circumstances have played into it big time. So we'll never know what would have happened if McCarthy got a full season behind Sam Darnold. We'll just never know. We'll never know what would have happened if he stayed healthy after week 2. Unless, I guess, 3 years from now, he turns out to be really good. Ron, is Hockenson ready for a bounce back after knee surgery? Well, I mean, last year, in 2024, actually, he was fine with Sam Darnold. Darnold just threw the ball downfield a lot, but he was fine. Last year, everybody had their stats regress. I think that he's looked fine to me in training camp. He looked fine to me in training camp last year. I really think it's just about finding him. That is one of the positions you control, I think, the least of your target share. Guitar, the offense takes too long to call. I've felt that way sometimes as well. I have definitely felt that way as getting out of the huddle, getting the calls. I think so. Ryder, we have QB1 and QB2 prone to injuries. Wouldn't be surprised if we see. Are you really? I mean, like with Kyler Murray, after he got hurt, he tore an ACL in 2022. and he had a little bit of an injury in 21, but he played 14 games out of 16. Was it 17 then? 17? So he tore the ACL, but then when he came back, he played, I think, 11 games, so 31 straight games after he came back from the ACL. Then this year got hurt and was expected to come back, and then the whole, Arizona tanking thing happened. Fetchwater, what do I think is going to happen with Brosmer? I think he's going to be their practice squad quarterback, and maybe with hopes of him being QB 2 or 3 next year, but probably more of a QB 3 type guy over his career. Like, there are sort of levels of backups. There's backups like Wentz, who you're fine with playing 4 games, and there's backups where you love them around the team and in the room and everything else, but you don't really want to have to play them. It's funny that, Mike, you say that Kwesi was a terrible general manager, but they still have a chance in year 2 of the, his build to potentially go and win the division. I don't know. I mean, I know what you're saying, but they won 14 games under him in a roster he built. I don't know. I think we got to get the right stuff. Contra Pass and Seifert reporting JJ out-repped. It doesn't, it's a walkthrough. It looked to me like both guys were taking a good amount of first team reps in the walkthrough, but it's a walkthrough. I'm not counting reps in the walkthrough, guys. Ahmed, do you think the Vikes will be tempted to sign Terry and Arnold? I do not. Eric, JJ is going to be the starter. That doesn't look in any way like that's going to be the case right now, but it could be. If that theory makes you feel better, but it just doesn't seem to be rooted in much fact at the moment. I guess we'll see. There's a long way to go. I love that. I love that. Okay, Kyler did not have a what? What are you talking about? No one had any type of day, dude. They did a walkthrough. Connor, do I think that they keep 4 tight ends? I think it's very possible, but I do think probably one of them goes to the practice squad and then they elevate them if they're needed. Yep. JP, cheering for JJ to win the competition. But I listen to professional guys who could be objective at the end of the day. When, if Kyler is QB1, I'll cheer for him. Well, don't be rational in the comment section, JP. Doesn't make any sense. I did talk a little bit terror about Banks. He is participating. Yep. He's taken first team reps, but not all of them, and some second team reps, but it hasn't been like a huge workload yet. I think they're going to ramp that up. Yep. I don't know what Kalashi is, but it has Kyler at 6% chance to be the highest scoring quarterback for fantasy. You buying? Probably not. There's quarterbacks like Matthew Stafford, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. It would be pretty shocking. I think if you're projecting a good season for Kyler, it's like 3,600 yards passing, 400 yards rushing, somewhere in that range. That'd be a good season. Hans says Vikings are overwhelmingly to finish last in the division. Like it or not, this does change how we approach this year. No, I don't think that. I don't think that does at all. I don't think the Vegas over/under means a thing to what your actual performance is going to be. If it did, then they certainly wouldn't have won 14 games in 2024. Vegas is smart, but they're not perfect. The will the thrill chart is a good idea. Raw dog. Do you think that the gap between Kyler and JJ is closer than you or others initially thought? No, I don't. I think the gap is exactly what I thought. I think Kyler Murray is a very, very talented quarterback who will start for this team and is got a chance to have his best season since 2021 with his best supporting group. And after 2 days, I have not changed my mind. And I think that J.J. McCarthy is a very talented quarterback who, if he keeps his head on straight and works as hard as he can be a starting quarterback down the road, the same way that Ryan Tannehill or Alex Smith were, because those are the guys he reminds me of. So that opinion didn't change in 2 days of practice. I promise you. I promise you that didn't change in 2 days of practice. So anyway, let's see. Just trying to make sure I didn't miss any topics that we went through. Okay, Autumn Village, a unique question. As a reporter on the Vikings, what are the general rules on cheering for the Vikings versus playing in neutral? If you're a reporter, then you are not cheering at all, ever. Our job is to gather information and give our objective reflections on that information. And that's it. And I do it in an entertaining way that's more opinionated than most reporters, because I was in sports radio where it's, all opinion in sports radio. So I've really tried to meld the two to be very modern and live stream, right? Meld the two opinions, but with it all backed by facts and reporting. That's why I'm charting every throw. So I come in every night and you could say, oh, you're biased, or you love this guy, or you want to kiss this guy in the mouth, or whatever you want to say. But I'm like, here's my data. This is what I gathered. This is the reps. This is where they threw the ball. This is what I saw. This is who they threw it to. Here's the highlights. Here's the lowlights. And here's my takeaway, right? There's no cheering when it comes to that. I'm a reporter covering the team. So is the Star Tribune. So is the Pioneer Press. I own 0 Vikings jerseys, hats, whatever. I got the little flag from a Vikings fan, but I got all the other flags as well. So I'm here to give you the information, have a great conversation with you guys, so you can ask me, or we can have a discussion about, different stuff that's going on, kind of your eyes and ears, but also your sounding board as well. And if you got theories and opinions, I can bring to you as much that I've gathered by covering the team. But I've never clapped for a touchdown or stood up and, whatever. I mean, there are players you get to know that when they succeed, you're like, hey, good for that guy. But that's about as far as it goes. And when they win the Super Bowl someday, which I think they will, then I will be absolutely thrilled for you guys. And I will be absolutely honored to cover a Super Bowl and to cover a Super Bowl parade and to be at a live stream with you guys when you guys are celebrating and talking about your favorite moments of the Super Bowl, but I won't feel a thing. I mean, I'll feel good for the people who worked hard for it. Like, hey, good for them. And I'll feel great for the fans. Hey, great for you guys. But I'm still going to be going out with the notebook and with the recorder and just gathering as much as I can to bring back to you about what it was like then when they won the Super Bowl. So that's the job. That's the job. There are people who are fans that are in media. That is a different job. So you have the beat reporters, myself, Dane, Andrew, Ben, Emily, Seifert, like Alec. Those are the beat reporters. Those are the people who are really, the journalists covering the team. And then you do have like radio people who give their opinions and are fans and they talk about that and so forth. That's a different job from what I do. So those people are going to have more rooting interest and stuff. And I think that most of them, they make that clear that that's the case, but it gets muddied in this world because you also have they used to call them bloggers. You could call them content creators now, who are taking much more of a rooting type of angle where they're cheering for things to happen. That's not us. So it is a little bit complicated because you could think like, oh, this person who has a certain website or something, they must be unbiased, but it might not be the case, which is fine. I mean, and people have every right to do that. It's just that that's not what I do. So hopefully that clears it up. Fabian Moreau has been good the last 2 years. He has. You're right about that. All the media drools over how amazing KOC is, but is he? Does he need to win a playoff game? Yeah, I mean, I think we're all in agreement of that, right? I mean, yeah, of course, like the national media has liked KOC. They're not as angry as you guys are sometimes about, certain things. They also try to have to watch 32 teams. And so they see coach of the year, which he was great. Couldn't have asked for much more except for that one last win against Detroit. I think he's proven that he could be a very good coach in this league, but you do not get a great coach label until you win the playoffs. I also think there's other coaches who are called great coaches who have had one quarterback for the last 5 years. And I think KOC's had 8 or 9. So that's been an issue. But yeah, I think if you don't win a playoff game this year, there's a lot of pressure there. So, Yeah, cap space. Sorry if I didn't get to comments. But I do want to save some voice for tomorrow because I think that tomorrow is going to be a big one, a big practice for them. And I'm going to bring you back as much information as possible. And yeah, I see now, I realize how far behind I did get in the chat, and I apologize for that. I got to be faster these days. I was in off-season mode where, there's 100 people here. AP Carlin say the Vikings are 5-1 with Kyler, and the Buccaneers offer Vea for a third, JJ, and a second. Do you take it? Yes. Yeah, I would take that. I mean, to get a draft pick along with Vita Vea. I mean, that's if JJ loses the competition and they don't believe in him and they're 5-1. Or yeah, if he loses the competition, Kyler's playing great and they're 5-1. Absolutely. Yeah, I would definitely do that. Just making sure that I can, if there's any subjects that I didn't touch on. You want the media to ask McCarthy if he still has his alter ego. I've never cared about his alter ego. Autumn Voyage, would Tampa Bay trade Baker for Kyler? No, they're going to play Baker and they're going to try to win. And then they're going to see if something happens at the end. They could still franchise tag him, by the way. I know that he's mad and he's been obvious about it. I don't know, Steven, if YouTubers who refer to the media as jackals, I think that I am lumped into that, though. Yeah, I am. I mean, I assume so. Thank you, John, for the super chat. Hopefully I shouted you out earlier, but if I didn't, apologize for that. Yeah, I would assume that we're considered the jackals. Nate, what worries me more, the defensive back or running back room? Running back. Because if Aaron Jones isn't healthy, Mason can't really handle the entire load, and Damon Claiborne and Xavier Scott aren't very experienced. Defensive back room, I think, is pretty good. The fact I've really liked what I've seen from James Pierre. I think he's going to be a good player for them. So if somebody goes down, you have James Pierre, who's an experienced corner, and then you've got Demings, who you drafted. And multiple safeties. They play big nickel, so you don't need as many corners. So yeah, I would say the running back room. I mean, yeah, Skull Shadow. Yeah, I mean, if you want to call me a jackal, that's fine. It's probably why. Like, does a jackal have a soul? That's probably what it refers to. And it does drive people crazy because, they come into the comment section, they say, you love this guy, you love that guy. And it's like, dude, I've been doing this for 10 years. And I've seen lots of ups and downs with lots of different players, and I've always done the job exactly the same way. Claiborne for Mr. Mankato, could see that. Alex, do you think some of the check down stuff from JJ in this camp and Kyler's deep shots are each guy working on their weakness? I don't really know. I mean, that's one of the problems. Like, we're going to talk to KOC, and we may get some feedback on that, but it's 2 days of camp. I mean, it could be sample size. It could be just the way that plays played out. It could be that Kyler is trying to execute the offense the way it's designed for KOC, who wants to go down the field. It could be that McCarthy doesn't want to make mistakes early in camp and then get reps taken away from him. It could just be this is what the defense gave them. Like, there's a lot of variables to this stuff that we have to admit that we don't know. So I don't have the perfect answer for you. There's theories. There's definitely theories. I agree, Steve, that, Teasley will probably do things better or not better, but like a different way than Kwesi. I think they will focus on building this through the draft. And that's really the way to get to the top, I think. Joker Purple Insider did get a bit emotional about the Vikings maybe not going to the Super Bowl because Darnold left. So the Darnold thing, my thing with Darnold, when you talk about being emotional, was, well, there were two things. I mean, one, when every day, with the extra snark, when is it extra snark? I feel like it's always snark all the way down to the gas pedals all the way down the snark. The Darnold thing was, what bothered me there was that people mistreated Sam Darnold and just, I thought, just were so dismissive of a quarterback who had been so great. I mean, when you have a season like that and win 14 games, how many guys win 14 games in their career? And to play that way, he drove them to 14 wins. He wasn't like, on the number one defense. They had a good defense. It wasn't number one. They had no running game really in the second half of the season. Sorry about that. Excuse me. But yeah, all I heard, a guy lost 2 games. I've seen the best quarterbacks ever play bad in the playoffs. And it was just so mean-spirited, man. It just didn't make sense to me. Like, he had had such a great season. He had done so well for this franchise when he had no expectations whatsoever. He had been a great turnaround story. And it was just like, F this guy. From everybody, from the national media, to the way the team treated him, to the way the fans treated him. It was like he had done nothing. It was like he had won 2 games. Get the hell out of here. Don't ever look back. And it was just, don't let the door hit you. I mean, it just made no sense to me. I was like, does anybody want to think about this first? That Joe Flacco, Mr. Clutch in the Super Bowl, had terrible playoff games. Eli Manning, Matthew Stafford, all these guys, terrible playoff games. That Patrick Mahomes has lost 2 Super Bowls, exactly how Darnold lost that game to the Rams, looked exactly the same way. I mean, just isn't this a little unfair to say seeing ghosts when the guy said that when he was like 22 years old playing against Bill Belichick at his peak? I mean, I don't know, man. So that really frustrated me. I don't like when people pigeonhole a player. I don't love it about Kyler Murray either. Like those narratives are almost always wrong. And then, to tell you the truth, I am a tad bit competitive myself. And when I was saying, hey, maybe they should keep him, I think it's maybe a good idea to keep him, and the comment section is calling me the dumbest person of all time, and then he wins the Super Bowl, sorry, I'm probably going to say, well, how about that? Because I am a tad petty in that way, yeah. So yeah, there was a little bit behind that because, I mean, I got just destroyed every night in the comment section, and then I was right. So yeah, right. Yeah, I was going to live that up a little bit. Hans, are you as confident or less confident in Kyler as you were in Darnold around this time? Despite not having a year like Kyler did a few years ago, I would go, yeah, Sam. Well, I mean, by 2 practices? Oh, God, no. No. By 2 practices, I had no idea what Sam was going to be. I mean, I liked watching him throw the football because it was crazy, but I also knew that he had never been a good quarterback before. So he had some real up and down practices for the first half of the year and was terrible on the first day of joint practices against the Browns. And that was really concerning as well. So it took really halfway into the summer. Then the light went on for Sam Darnold. So at this very time, no, I had very little confidence in Darnold. Now I thought it could be okay. I thought he could win like 8 or 9 games with them, which was probably a bold thing at the time, I suppose. But I did not have, I mean, actually, I probably would predict, I remember talking about what week they'll bench Darnold for JJ McCarthy. So no, I didn't have a whole heck of a lot of confidence in him at that time. That developed over that summer. So I would have more confidence in Kyler Murray because he's been a good quarterback recently than I would have had at the same exact marker. Now, ask me at the end of training camp, it might be a different answer. Jay Mulls, who's playing behind Dallas Turner. Ty Ingram Dawkins has gotten the most work there. And it looks like, as for now, he's going to be that person. And then we'll see if they add somebody else. But the other guys, the Batty, the Chambliss, the Richter, mostly playing second team, but Ingram Dawkins has been mixing in with the ones. I do not have any opinions. I don't know what you're talking about on the video. Someone videoed something. I don't know. I'm sorry. I am not online much during training camp because I'm here with you 3 hours a night because you guys keep having great questions. And then I'm out at practice and I'm watching what's going on in practice. So whatever, I'm sorry. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, I mean, Seattle did rely on their run game a lot, but also in the NFC Championship when they really needed him, he was able to drive their success. Yeah, I agree with you. In 2022, if they had a good defensive coordinator, there's a lot of what ifs, man. There's a lot of what ifs, as always with this team. FanDuel question of the day answer. You think it's going to be Gibbs, huh? With their schedule and no Montgomery, it does make sense. Can he handle the workload? Oak Dog hoping for Jefferson. But maybe going with Nakua for Offensive Player of the Year. Hunter, I don't see why the Vikings couldn't have been contenders last year with Darnold. They could have. Yeah, they could have. They missed the forest through the trees, I think. They could have. If they had offered him a reasonable contract, or if they had franchise tagged him, then he would have been here. And yeah, they wouldn't have had Allen and Hargrave, and maybe would have had to restructure some contracts to make it work, but they could have. Douglas, what's your, I did an article on it that they could have last year. What's your expectations for the D tackles? Will it be like 2024 with Phillips and Bullard, or with Allen and Hargrave last year? I mean, I think it's going to be a lot more of Phillips and Bullard, but with some kind of wild cards in there. I mean, Caleb Banks is a total wild card. If he got 7 sacks, I wouldn't be shocked. If he got 0, I wouldn't be shocked. Like, we have no idea what that's going to look like. The other guys are much more in the Phillips and Bullard mold, which I think means stopping the run effectively and then moving dudes for blitzers. Jamal Adams comes in here, is probably another blitzer type of guy. That's how I see it as of this moment, but there's one guy who could change that, and that would be Caleb Banks. Because if he starts rushing the passer, it's going to look totally different. I did know that Kyler has a YouTube channel. I did know that. Beaver's best friend. The problem with KOC's offense is the quarterback never seemed to have enough time to throw. The sacks and the quarterback hits are way too much. Way too much. And I guess if there's a thing about Kyler where that could work is that he'll just scramble as opposed to getting crunched. But I think that the long developing stuff, you do put your quarterback in harm's way. And Kirk's injury was definitely random, but the beating that he took in 2022, and then Josh Dobbs ends up getting beat up, and you saw it from JJ McCarthy, and Sam Darnold had to leave a few games throughout the year, and he took a ton of hits. Like, at some point, you do have to try to protect your quarterback, but I think they've looked at the offensive line for that, and it's not always the offensive line. Purple Kool-Aid, is it possible both quarterbacks are trying to show what they can do? What has been looked at as flaws in their game? I mean, truly, it's 2 days of unpadded practice. It's just not enough to say that. I think we need a better sample size. Seifert reported JJ had 32 reps to Kyler's 26 today. Okay. Walkthrough. I mean, I love that these guys are counting. I was not counting today because I thought it's a walkthrough. So I didn't count. The other podcast that I'm doing once a week with Alec and Garrett Greenlee is called Vikings Collective. So keep an eye out for that. Thoughts on Baker to the Vikings? I mean, that's a year down the road. I have no idea what's going to happen. I think he would probably thrive in this type of system. If they have to do that, then they have to do that. But that feels very Kirkian to me. That feels very Kirkian. It feels like a quarterback who's just not quite good enough, but is really, really solid and up and down and could be effective, but it just doesn't feel like that actually gets you somewhere. So thank you. Thank you guys. And apologies for the trolling. I'll try to jump on that. I've told my wife that if she's watching, she can log into my YouTube and block trolls if she wants to. Did I cheer for Darnold in the playoffs? I watched it just like I watch every other game. But when he won, did I feel very good that someone who got bullied and got dismissed for a long time won the Super Bowl? Yeah, I did. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Like, I wasn't sitting there with a Sam Darnold hat on and fist pumping every time he completed a pass. I just watched the Super Bowl like I watch every other game. But, because I was doing a podcast after, so I'm taking notes, basically, getting ready to do the show. And I'm watching and analyzing and trying to think of what I'm going to say and everything else. But, at the end, when he's celebrating, it's like maybe some justice in this world for someone who was just treated so poorly by everybody and just brushed off. This guy can never win. He's not good enough, even though he has the talent. And it just took the right situation. And he still gets ranked like 18th by people among quarterbacks. It's hilarious, but whatever. Yeah. I mean, I feel good for people. Xavier, who were you a fan of when I was growing up? That's kind of, well, one is, I went to journalism school. So you kind of learn like how to gather facts and formulate opinions in an objective manner. I also took logic. Some maybe you could tell, but growing up, the Buffalo Bills were just awful. I mean, when I was really young, it was Jim Kelly and Thurman Thomas, but I was like 5, and then they were atrocious. And I played a ton of Madden, and I played with all sorts of different teams, probably all 32 teams at some point for playing Madden. And when I originally went to school, I went for sports management because I wanted to get into being in a front office. And then I landed a internship in radio and started doing that. And that's how my career, ended up taking me here. But, so I wouldn't say, I watched every football game, every single football game, every NFL films, everything for every team. So there wasn't like and I was really more like a kind of a baseball fan at the time of like one team growing up because I grew up in New York. But, yeah, for football, it was Favre, it was Steve Young, it was, the Kurt Warner, greatest show on turf. Like, I loved it all. But it's not really that different these days. Anyway, okay. Yeah, I think when you guys are talking about like the next draft, we just have to like pump the brakes a little bit, or the next year's quarterback. Just have to take a little break. Do I like JJ Watt as a commentator? I'm going to tell you the truth. I haven't seen him do a game. I know he's a really, really sharp guy. And I truly think, and Class G, anytime, man, for the question. I really think that Tony Romo had struggled the last couple of years. I think his rhythm with Nance was off, and it could be frustrating to listen to. And it sounded like the preparation wasn't there, and replacing him with someone who's really hungry for it, like JJ Watt, is a good idea. So, no, Jay, I cannot name the number one thing that KOC does that drives me crazy as a reporter. No, I will not reveal that. But no, I honestly think as far as head coaches go to cover, Zim was a lot more challenging. KOC is a lot more forthcoming, I think. And it's been an interesting time covering him, but I don't think it gets much better for reporters than how we have the situation of covering Kevin O'Connell. So when do they start with the pads? That would be on Monday. So there you go. I got to the bottom. You guys were great tonight. You guys were awesome. This was a really fun chat, really good conversation. And guess what? We're going to do it again tomorrow, but we're going to have charts, and we're going to have clips from KOC's press conference, and we'll have other notes of who did what. First day of fans. It is not pads, but it's first day of fans, which usually means a pretty electric practice. And I'll gather everything I can, bring it back to you guys, break it down, and have another discussion then. So I had planned, I said to my wife, I was like, I don't know if anyone's going to be here tonight. It was just kind of a walkthrough, and we'll see how it goes. And here you guys are firing too many questions that I get behind, but it's great. Absolutely awesome stuff. So thank you so much. And again, another show coming your way tomorrow night with more details. And that's what makes doing this every day fun during camp, is there's just these developments and ebbs and flows and changes in the discussion. And it's like trying to not overreact, but also react. It's a fun time. It's football. So we'll do it again tomorrow. And then on Sunday, I'm going to take my Aurora Lux mattress and take a big old nap.